Hello, hello, hello. I was about to
Hello.
say I don't want to intro video because this
Yeah.
is kind of new for me. I never even thought about it to make one. I guess you
You have to
can.
have I tried it one time, and you have to have an account, an official StreamYard account to actually
So
program
they're
it.
trying to trick you. Huh?
But
So it's like you press the
exactly right. They're
button,
trying to
then
get
you're
you to
gonna have
click.
to sign up,
Yeah,
and then you
exactly right.
paid all the monies in the world.
And it's not cheap. A StreamYard account isn't cheap. I remember looking at it just out of curiosity. I
Yeah.
don't remember the numbers, but I was surprised at actually how expensive it was. I'm
Was
not saying
it?
StreamYard is a bad platform for
Yeah.
whatever reason. It's a great one, but like I don't know if it's worth that just to get rid of the logo on the side of the image and
Well, you get
potentially
extra.
stream across two platforms or whatever.
Yeah, you get the extra features, isn't it? So you can have
Yeah,
some sort of things
but it's not a
happening.
ton of extra features though. That's the thing.
Oh,
Like, yeah, the
yeah.
free one seems to work pretty well.
Well, don't jinx it. Now he's gonna jinx us, ladies and gentlemen. We're
Yeah,
gonna crash. We're
it's
not
gonna
gonna be
crash and
able to.
burn.
Yeah, we're not gonna be able to communicate anymore with you guys. So
Yeah.
blame him if something happens. Okay? Not
Okay.
me. I didn't say that.
My email is eatshit@hotmail.com. Kiss my
Uh,
ass. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, please get in touch with me. Let me know.
So I haven't watched much exciting things. Oh, there's one show we watched. It's called Ludwig. It's a new BBC. I'm not sure who. It's basically a British TV show. Whatever.
Mm,
It's they kind of mold it. I don't even know who makes anything because kind of like they do kind of similar things with each channels, whatever they do. But it's Dave Mitchell. He's the main actor. So he's
oh yeah,
stand-up
I know who that is. Yep.
comedian, yeah. And if you're aware of those kind of people, so he's acting as a twin, and he's actually detective. Well, one of the twins is detective. Another one is a puzzle setter called Ludwig. And things bad happens, and Ludwig has to take over for his twin. And it's kind of like they also started to do this, and it's a bad habit. I think Disney has kind of jinxed everyone. Is they kind of it's very interesting, intriguing detective shows. Quite a laid back. There's lots of mysteries, but it's like a all family gathered. You know, like you can sit down and you can actually watch it all. But they don't give you much of a story from the couple of first episodes. It goes along. Don't get me wrong; it goes along really well. But there's lots of like snippets you can actually put in there, a couple of shots to make you more intrigued about the next episode. But they do that; they kick in straight away just before the last episode. So 2 episodes about to finish, 6 episodes by the way, the first season, and they capture you completely, and you're like, okay, I know it's gonna be about to finish, like the season, and you're like, oh come on man, do a bit better, kind of thing. But it's really good. I mean, it's a perfect time to just sit down and watch some detective like and like TV show, which I am absolute fan of. A bit predictable in some sense, like the detective parts, because like if you watch many of them, you start to know the clicks and the patterns of how they solve the
Mm,
mysteries and stuff. But what is fantastic is to see Dave Mitchell actually doing all his stuff. And if you watch a lot of what Dave Mitchell has been doing all of his career, he's actually still very good at what he does. And he's so
mhm,
awkward, and he makes awkward scenes really awkward, and you like feel
mhm.
like, dude, how do you like you kind of completely so like convinced that he's that twin and or that character, and he's a lonely guy. So there's kind of like two different spheres of the character. So one twin is outgoing, he's married, has children, and then we have Ludwig, another twin, who is a puzzle setter, and he's been bullied, and he's not doesn't have confidence, he hasn't left his family home for decades because it just feels comfortable in his surroundings, like stays in between four walls, and he gets this money, and whatever he's excited about, all fine, but suddenly he has to be thrown out into the world, and it's absolutely like awkward when it comes to like, what do I say? Hello? And this
Mhm.
is part of the conversation I have to make, and he's like, I'm scared of that. I don't know what I'm going to say to you back. If somebody asks me a question. So yeah, in that sense, it was really nice to watch. So one of the
Mm, mhm.
highlights of late.
Peep Show was his early show, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was doing that
Right.
with the other guy, which I forgot his name, the blonde,
Yeah, I can't
kind of
remember his name
balding.
either. Yeah. And
So
I've
yeah.
seen him. I'm a fan of Would I Lie to You? I haven't seen a ton of the episodes, but I've seen a good handful of them. And he's one of the captains on that show too. So that's a fun show, Would I Lie to You?
Mhm.
It's really fun.
It is like the levels of intelligence he portrays is quite intriguing.
Right.
It's not
Yeah.
only that he's an actor, but it's also he has so much smarts going
Mhm.
in his head that is actually quite nice that he's able to like use it as an own, because he's an awkward, he's a typical Englishman, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like a proper awkwardness. You know, you stand next to the man and they won't say anything to you until you say the first words.
Uh-huh.
And nothing to bash about it. It's just the way it happens. You know, like
Yeah.
they won't start the conversation. You're like, come on, you like you have to kind of like kick it the
Yeah.
conversation in order to get some sort of response. And he's perfect. An example, it seems to be. I mean, he like Would I Lie to You is an area where he would be a very comfortable with what situation, you know, like he knows exactly where it's going to be at, and it seems to be the more he does those shows, is more like relaxed. If you haven't watched Would I Lie to You, the first seasons, watch those, and afterwards latest, that you can sense the difference between the same person. It seems to be he's kind of more relaxed and all the stuff.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And then his wife is also an intriguing like person who is also in high intelligence and also as awkward as him. And I don't know how those two match together, to be honest.
Yeah. I think she was on one of the seasons of Taskmaster as well.
Yeah.
And it was pretty funny.
Yeah, she's like really also kind of like bizarre. She has a bizarre way of thinking as well.
In her own way. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's like, you know, like definitely that well,
they're nerds, you know, they're like nerds.
Yeah, well, yeah, big nerds when it comes to educational nerds.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, like the classic kind of definition of like, you know, like a nerd who's book smart and all those kind of things.
Yeah, because
Screw
you never
those
know.
guys.
It seems to be whatever you speak and whatever sentence next to them sounds like I'm like fucking stupid.
Yeah, right.
Not that, you know, I'm not. I don't know what might say me, but yeah, it feels like that kind of thing. So yeah, Ludwig is a TV show. So if you come across it somehow in some ways across the pond, have a look. It's very, as I say, very definitely family TV show to watch.
Yeah.
You know, there's intrigue in there. There's, of course, there's murder, but you know, not comparison what other murders your children can see. And
yeah, right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
some of the other crime shows. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you watch anything?
I haven't watched them yet, but I downloaded the first 4 episodes of Junji Ito's Uzumaki that's on Netflix, the animated series. So I haven't watched them yet. I just downloaded them this afternoon, so I'm hoping to dip into those. And I've been jonesing to see Berserk again. So Berserk I first saw as like an anime back when I lived in Ontario. And then I found out it was a manga. That was like early days of me getting into manga, period. Like 1999, 2000-ish, something like that. I'm like really getting into it. And I eventually found like the DVD sets of the series because I never did see the whole thing in this anime club I was a part of out in Ontario. I never did complete the series. So I hunted and hunted and hunted. And especially at that time, it was super difficult to get your hands on this stuff. And it was super expensive too, to get like subtitled DVD copies of things. So I eventually found it, loved it. I watched it a couple of times. And then there was a Blu-ray that I thought was an upgrade, like re-release. So I sold the other ones to get the Blu-ray copies, only to find out that the Blu-ray was a newer series at that time, a newer series made in like 2015, 17, 14. I don't even know when, but I didn't realize that. I thought it was just an upgrade. So stupidly, I sold them and I regretted it. Like I've seldomly regret getting rid of stuff. I pretty much never regret it, to be honest. This is one of those that I really regret. So I'm starting to download that because I'm jonesing to watch it again. I think it's 25 episodes from 1997 is when it came out. And I'm really looking forward to kind of dipping into that again. And I know my son hasn't seen it. either. So maybe we'll sit and watch that together because he's a big fan of the books. He's still reading the books. He gets the big tomes, the big thick volumes for Christmas and his birthday and stuff like that. We usually get them for him.
So he gets the hardcovers, yes.
Yeah, the hardcover ones. Yeah, and they look great on his shelf. Yeah, they're and he loves the series. Like I said, he's always been a fan of it. It's one of his go-tos.
Interesting, because I mean, I watched that one long golden. I mean, because there's some certain way the way anime of Berserk has been made, isn't it? Because in certain storylines. So I think I watched the Golden Age, isn't it? That's something like that. I know I thoroughly enjoyed that one, but I'm not sure. I don't even know the timeline. The things I watched is always has been intriguing, but it always puts me off from, like, in generally manga, that you have to commit so many. I mean, even those Berserk hardcovers looks absolutely goddamn fantastic, but they're like what are they, 20 something odd now released, aren't they?
Oh, I would say more than that, but I don't honestly remember. But yeah, I mean, there's I think at least 18, 19 volumes, at least that, if not more.
Yeah. And it's so nice that they actually committed to doing that, which is, as I say, it's if you like, if you don't collect too many things, and this is the one you are actually concentrating on, like you say, your son has as like a birthdays and all occasion stuff, to collect those, that doesn't hit your pocket really badly. But when you keep on seeing every, like, I think twice a year they release a new one, isn't it? Or even maybe even more often.
We don't keep track because he's still far behind. I think he's only on like book 12 or 13. I know that he's quite a few volumes behind, so we end up kind of just getting them when we see them, because now the thing is, now that there's so much, my wife has been finding ones on sale quite often. There was a comic shop actually here in town. I think last year they were having, or earlier this year they were having a sale, and we ended up getting 2 volumes from him, and I think it was a 50% off cover price sale, so we ended up getting 2 more and kind of socking them away to give them out, on occasions, right? So yeah, and she's great at kind of finding deals on stuff. So I don't think she's paid. I don't know if we've ever paid full price on any. My mom may have when she's gotten him something for Christmas, but I think for us, we've always managed to find a sale because they printed so many of the damn things, right? Like, because it's so popular.
I think they're printing it now even more because of the popularity it holds.
Yeah.
I think it makes money, so I guess they want to churn that out, and I think people starting to realize how good those hardcovers actually are, and just to have them, like you say, beautifully on your shelf. But it's just so much. There's so much.
Yeah.
I also watched a Studio Ghibli movie, which I always forget the name of. It's about the girl who is in high school, and she is debating whether to become a writer, and because she's really into books, and then she discovers that this guy who is been taking the books in the same time as she does, and she starts kind of like teenage kind of feel like, oh, I'm gonna have a crush on him, and she feels like embarrassed. Also, she finds out who that guy is. I always forget the name of it, but I watch it.
Not Fire City of Fireflies or something, or I'm trying to go through the Ghibli movies in my head.
No.
Yeah,
No,
it doesn't
like,
sound immediately familiar. Maybe it's one that I haven't seen.
It's in the 90s one, which is honestly, I always forget the name, and there's no one, because I thought I have not seen it. So guess what? I thought I've never seen it. So I started watching it. I'm about right at the end, and right at the end I realized, shit, I think I know this movie.
Yeah, right.
Right at the end. It's like, but because Studio Ghibli is very relaxing viewing, okay?
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah, and no matter how many times I watch, I get so much involved into the scenery and surroundings that sometimes kind of like you brush the story away because it's so calming, first of all. But the scenery itself, the atmosphere, the studio, they can portray in that.
Whisper of the Heart is what Howlermouse is saying. Whisper of the Heart, was that it?
Yes, thank you, Howler. Thank God.
So yeah, no, then I have not seen that one. That is one of the few that I haven't seen.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's very much like teenage kind of things going on, but she is this aspiring kind of like, she has this idea what she doesn't know what she wants to do basically, but
Mhm.
she's extreme bookworm. She goes like on purposely to library quite often, and those kind of like the way how Japanese like the kids, they're allowed to go no matter how, like from 6 years old they travel the public transport and all that stuff. So it's kind of interesting, intriguing sense. And then she sees this cat, and then she's like, why would you be in like on the tube, like why would you be in the tube taking the cat basically takes its own like stop,
Oh.
and then she has a conversation with him, but it's
Mhm.
completely ignores it and she starts following him. And then I thought there's a story which is kind of similar, where they see the cats become those gods and stuff like that in those one alleyway, and it becomes magical realm. But
I
that's
think
not
there
that
was a
story.
second. I think I know what you're talking about now, and I think there was a sequel, a second one as
Yeah,
well. The cat, yes, because that does sound familiar. The title
Baron.
didn't ring a bell. Yeah.
She sees this statue of Baron, where it's like a
Hmm. Yeah, that's right.
used a shop of music, I think, or anyway, it's something eclectic shop she never existed. She never knew existed. So yeah, it's really
Mhm.
nicely done, honestly. And she has this family, and they live like in this, like all the Japanese. If you see the documentaries, how they live, and where like really cramped, one in like tiny little rooms, a lot of stuff surrounding themselves, like almost like a hoarder house.
Hmm.
Because there's books and books and everything, and there's just like the kitchen is the most tiniest table they have. They sit there, all four people sit there, and you're like, my god, that's so crowded, kind of thing. But it still looks
Totally.
magical enough, because I kind of think the way that he's managing to portray that kind of style of work.
That was
So I,
the exciting thing. Like when Ed Piskor used to go to Japan, there when he went those couple of times, that he would say like their secondary book market is enormous for manga because of the small places that people have.
yeah,
Pardon me, they just don't have the space to hold on to everything,
yeah,
so they generally get rid of stuff. And he's like, the used manga market is unbelievable. Anything, almost anything you could possibly dream of, and then dirt cheap on top of it because it's used, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
yeah, so I guess there's a little bit of bonuses to that sometimes.
But then the way they produce the mangas as well, like they're very quick to come out, isn't it? It's like
Yeah,
because of the competition,
yeah.
because they want to capture all this attention, and there's so many of those people who actually read and blah blah blah. But then as I say, so anyway, honestly, Whisper of the Heart. So yeah, I always forget this name, but it seems to be, I've watched it many times, because I
Mhm.
just recall it. I find it extremely fascinating to watch the wind in Studio Ghibli movies, the way he's using the color, the movement of the how, like the surrounding areas, the movement of the train suddenly passing by, and there's just one flickering movement, but then there's this wind whooshing around, and you're just like, it just feels warm, and it's always a very good feeling. And
Mhm.
like if you are down a little bit, it's always, so if I want to relax, I always look something like that, kind of like, I still
Yeah.
haven't watched the Heron, what is that, the newest
Boy
movie
and the
of,
Heron, yeah.
because I didn't know anything about it because I don't watch trailers, but I think I spotted some sort of a trailer or something, and it was based in like wartime, and I was like, "Oh, do I really?" Well, not really wartime, but I think something.
It's great, man. I don't think of it like that at all,
Yeah,
honestly.
well,
Think of it as like an artist looking back on his life, and think of it specifically as Miyazaki looking back on his life and all
oh,
his movies, because there's so many kind of Easter eggs from
oh
his
wow,
other movies that make an appearance. Like, yeah, so don't really. It's not an overt, heavy anti-war movie or anything. That's
oh,
a part of it for sure, but it's not as kind of overt as you might think, or at least in my impression, right? Like obviously we're different people, in case you didn't know, but
mm,
my I saw it more as like a really amazing movie of an artist looking back at his life as he's kind of
mm,
realizing he's reaching maybe, the end ish of his career, even though he's still going, so
mm. Anyway, not saying that I want to watch it. I will watch it, but I'm like, when I know the subject matter, I always pick. I need to really pick the right moments and time
mhm,
to when I want it, because I want all attention given, or because sometimes I watch the Miyazaki movies just because I just want to relax, and they really are relaxing. Some of them, of course, not, because there's so much high action and there's some like
mhm,
murder scenes and stuff like that. But I honestly just get, I want to see
they're
that
so good.
scenery,
Yeah.
I want that world to be like the color, the color palette that he's using. It's
Hmm.
it's just very pleasing to your eyes. So that's why I'm such
Yeah.
a fan of. And
Yeah,
now,
I mean, it's all great stuff. Like we've got a few of them. They were doing these releases that were a bit longer, like almost like these mini books. So you
mhm.
got the movie inside, you
Oh
got a
wow,
bunch of like articles and write-ups, and then there's also a CD with the soundtrack to that movie, and they're
oh,
beautiful kind of collections. We've only got 3 of them. During one of the times you're chatting, I'll run up and get one of them just to show you, but they're really nice way. They look nice on the shelf, but again, then you can sit and take out the soundtrack too and put the CD and listen to the music, which is also beautiful. So, but I agree with you. Like his movies, I could watch them over and over and over again and just not get sick of them. I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen Nausicaa. I don't know how many times I've seen Princess Mononoke and Spirited Away and Totoro. Like we've seen them multiple times, and
yeah,
every single time they're still just as good as they were the last time, so
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
timeless. I guess that's the classic
yeah.
definition of a timeless movie.
Oh yeah, yeah. I always it's always a safe bet for me as well. So, did you hear DC's news? Did you hear? Did
I don't hear shit about DC. What did they do now?
they they
Oh, relaunched Vertigo.
yes.
Yes, that I did hear. Actually, I did hear that. Yeah.
For me, it's a huge major news. I've been watching a couple of YouTube videos of people talking about it. Why would they do that? Why did they do that on purpose? I know kind of interesting theory saying that they did it on purpose, due reason, because that's how what DC usually does. When you don't expect it, they completely shatter something. It's really like important for some comic readers, and then it comes back again. So it
Mhm.
didn't last very long. The also idea of them having Vertigo back is all depends on who's the editor going to be. you
Right.
know, is it going to
And if the
be?
Neil Gaiman is involved, right?
Yeah.
I
Oh.
think it's called The Wind Rises, but the clouds and tone of movie put me right to sleep. I've never finished the movie. Wow, that's some heavy duty ASMR for you then there, Tim. That's intense.
Yeah. So I wonder how they're gonna deal with the vertical stuff and what kind of production they're gonna be. Actually, maybe it will be properly now understood what. So well, I heard people saying the Black Label is in continuation with the characters they use, and then Vertigo will be not continue. Like some sort of creators wants to do some job, and they're gonna slap a Vertigo title, and it's gonna be like what we were liking of Vertigo beforehand. But will we though?
Right.
Is there a time now with so much happening around comic books and so much production happening everywhere? Will it
I
Vertigo be
mean,
Vertigo what?
my usual thing with this kind of thing is I don't know
Mm,
why anybody would suspect that it would be like the old Vertigo. That's impossible to recreate because
mm,
that's just as much about the time period as what the comics that were coming out. Because I mean, obviously, it was about the comics that were coming out under that Vertigo imprint, but it was
mm,
also the time period, and you're not going to be able to recreate it. And that's I think that the one thing that I'm I'm gonna make sure that I filter a lot of videos is a bunch of old dudes going, "This isn't what Vertigo used to be like." Yeah, well, no shit, because it's not 1980 fucking seven or what. You know what I mean? Like it'll be one of those things of like I'm curious to see what titles, but honestly, I mean I mean, okay, sorry, I am so far out of kind of DC world where I don't pick up very much. I look
mm,
at stuff and everything that I just don't have any faith that again it's not just a game that they've played. Like drive up
mm,
the interest when you cancel it so everybody kind of starts screaming about it, and then wait a little bit of time till that hype starts to build and then bring it back again so you can sell some number ones. But I mean, I'll be curious to see what titles they put out for sure. I don't know if I'll get any, but I agree with Tim as well. No Karen Berger, no Vertigo. I mean, she
mm,
was the person behind it. Like she was the brain. If it wasn't for her,
yeah.
Vertigo would not have had as much of an impact because she brought so much to it with, and also like obviously bringing to it by, I mean, she had these fantastic relationships with people and went out and hunted down people and went to the UK to try to win people over to do stuff. Like, that's a time and a place, that Vertigo title, you know.
It will be interesting, but I think that this Black Label will all confuse everybody because they didn't really know what to, like the beginning with Black Label, it entails that this is adults only and nobody should be touching, like kids shouldn't
The
be
bat
touching.
dick was all that really came out of that, right? Like, it wasn't that the most kind of racy thing that came out on Black Label?
Yeah, it's controversial in that not only that they have to, like, okay, yes, we see one winner on the Batman stuff, and then everybody
With
just made
wings, weirdly enough.
and then afterwards I think the most thing what was really surprising for me, they censored it, so they made a censored edition of that, which is absolutely,
Of course they did.
Yeah,
fucking pussies. Yeah, of course they did.
But I was like, well, why would before I used to not care that much, like Vertigo has these controversial parts in it because, well, I know, because it's Batman. Okay, that's why. I think that's the whole thing, because it's a mainstream character. How dare you treating it the way, because there's a lot of kids who's looking up to that, blah blah blah. But then that's why you don't take the character as far as, whatever it will take you and excite somebody else with you, like business wise. But anyway, but I mean, generally, I think it's great. I mean, Vertigo's always have a nice spot in my collecting editions. I mean, I have shitloads of Vertigo titles from prior time. But I'm like yourself.
This whole drawer, this whole drawer is Vertigo. Like most of this drawer and maybe a little bit of this next one is Vertigo titles, so. And
then I'm not expecting it to blow my socks off, but I hope there will be something like that, because it will be also a good thing, like if you would go for that kind of like era again, which I've never experienced it, picking it up, first of all, because this is way before I started reading comic books. I would love to experience that kind of thing, because that would just make it more exciting about reading more comic books in that kind of.
Have they announced any titles yet, or is it still all hush hush?
No. I don't think I've heard anything. I just heard that the big stories that they bring in back. 90s Vertigo had controversial stuff, but 99% felt like served story. Felt like a publicity stunt and put in combat. Yep.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
It was totally publicity stunt. But again, like, what do you expect from a big mainstream corporation like stunts? I mean, I don't know why anybody would expect anything different. They're there to make money, and unfortunately that kind of stupidity makes money for people, and then when you censor it, then you can get another group of people pissed off and wanting to go hunt down the original. This is the uncensored version, and I got a slab 9.8 of the uncensored, like it just feeds this whole.
But it was the time that, like, for 1 week everybody was CGCing that uncensored edition. And it was on eBay everywhere. I mean, now it's like, are we talking about it? What? Just we mentioned it because we mentioned Vertigo, and somehow it's in our lips. But honestly, people forgotten about it in some ways.
Bat penis is on our lips, is what you said. Quote, Rasa. Bat penis on our lips.
Excuse me.
I'm going to put that in your Wikipedia.
So we're going to talk comics, of course. I have not read any new comic, by the way, just to give you a heads up.
Okay. So you didn't read this?
No, I have not. And I am not really happy about that. However, I just decided that I have to, because I've been picking up quite, like, I keep on like stinging on postage. So I'm trying to like decide once or decide twice, but you have to make and then this month, I think, or past month, it was like very often. So I just like have to watch a little bit more. So, and I wasn't really excited because Turtle came out book. Did you pick that up as well?
I didn't, because I didn't make it to that shop yet. So the shop that I was at to pick up this comic and Grommets, the next Grommets, he didn't have any left on the shelf of the newest Turtles. But I know the Galaxy comics, they'll have a shit ton of them probably left. So I'll grab one there.
So I think because this is like at the end of the month, and I'm not sure if I have any book, but I think if I have any book, then I'm gonna ask to, like, so next week definitely probably have some new books. but didn't have any new books. And I kind of like, oh, I wanted a new book kind of thing. But then I realized, shit, there's lots of things around me I can read, especially
Yeah.
what you have sent. So you can kickstart with whatever you want to mention.
So this weekend was our
Your Comic-Con.
Our comic convention,
Yeah.
and
You're gonna show off your.
I'll tell you a little story about the comic convention.
Okay.
First of all,
We have all the
you can keep us two people. I'll show the book in a minute. The comic convention. So I did a talk at the Comic-Con. So Film Training Manitoba is a local charitable organization, partially funded by the province of Manitoba, offering like training for film technicians, and we bring in guests and stuff like that. I used to be the co-chair on the board. So they had this event where they were speaking about pathways into the film industry here in Manitoba. So I was able to sit on that panel. Part of sitting on that panel was I got a free pass so I could go to the convention, because I wasn't going to go to the convention because like a lot of conventions, possibly, I don't really know, depending on where you live. Our convention here, this big comic convention, there's like maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's probably, I think there was about 6 booths that were selling comics, and it's all guys that I know from town. We used to have a store from Montreal that would come in and set up a huge, take up a lot of space, and they were fantastic. Galaxy Comics used to go to the event, and they would take up a good footprint. So the amount of comics, surprise, surprise, is really, really low. And then the price has gone up. So I took my son and his girlfriend yesterday because they were going to come and see the talk. So I paid for them to get in. It was $50 a person to get into the Winnipeg, Manitoba, middle of nowhere comic convention. Like, it was really a shock. I guess first thing is, when we used to go on Sundays. So we would get, because that's the days that were always the best, because they were a lot quieter. You can get some deals. People don't want to bring stuff home, so they're kind of more willing to make deals and stuff. But it was crazy. So $100 just for the two of them to get into the door. And we walked around Artist Alley and stuff, which was cool. But the one thing that relates to manga and anime that we were talking about was last year I had seen this guy who was like a Japanese bookseller. He was selling books from Japan. He had a bunch of Miyazaki art books, which looked pretty great and stuff. I flipped through a couple of them. He had some Godzilla stuff. He was selling posters, but more importantly, he had these books, the Otomo Complete Works from Kodansha. They're doing a series of them, and this is Akira Storyboards #1 and Akira Storyboards #2. So that those 2 books blew my budget for the comic convention, because they were pricey as shit. But there's nowhere else that you could, besides online, that you can get these. So it's just the Akira movie in its entirety in storyboard form, and it's incredible. I started into this one already, and was just kind of slowly going page by page. And because I've seen the movie so many times, it really plays out in your head as you're going panel to panel. There's a bit of a write-up at the beginning of the book too. But it's incredible. The Kayfabe guys used to show some of these books off on their channel. And I think it comes with it comes with a couple of extra bits inside here. In the next book, it comes with a bookmark as well too. But these are great. So I picked this up on Friday when I was there, because I had to go pick up my speaker's pass on Friday. And so I figured I'd walk around while people were kind of fresh there, and got volume 1. And then I was there yesterday. He still had book 2, so I picked that one up. And I think it's just the 2 books for the Akira storyboards that Kodansha put out. They got this really nice kind of pink jacket over top of it and stuff. Now, the bonus with this one is that it completes the movie, but then you get the rest of this book here is stuff that was the NG collection. So stuff that didn't make it into the movie. So storyboards for scenes that aren't in the movie, which is really, really great. So I haven't started looking through this one yet, but these are amazing, amazing books. They're beautifully produced. I've always had my eye on them. And then here's the couple of things that come with that, including a postcard there. I've always had my eye on them on when they started showing them on Kayfabe. but I just figured I'd never get my hands on them to see the two sitting there, and they're just gorgeous books. And I love the design on the spine, the Otomo, the O's kind of go across on each other there. So it's beautiful. I don't have a good spot to put them right now, but it's going to be a little while that I sit and kind of really slowly go through this. One of the things that was super interesting to see too, you really get to see his thought process in as much as planning out the shots and planning out the camera movement. Not like it's unique to him, because a lot of directors who do storyboards, they'll do this kind of thing. But there was one that really stood out to me as a really nice, it reads like a comic when you sit and flip through this. Sorry, give me 1 sec to find it was just a really nice transition. Yeah, this one here, hopefully it shows up. So starting off at the top, it's the biker, the clown gang right at the beginning. So we get this shot here where we can see his face, and then we do the turnaround where you can see his face reflected in the visor as we're now the clown looking up, about to get hit. I just love those two panels. And again, like when you read it as a comic, this book, it's stunning, the movement between images that you can get where you can fill in the gaps yourself, which is a huge part of the enjoyment of reading comics anyway, right? Like the space in between the panels. So excited I got these two. I can't believe I spent that much money on them, but I got them. So sorry.
Much? Tell us how much.
They were like 130 each Canadian. Yeah. So that's why I say like that was pretty much my entire budget for the Comic-Con. I got one or two other things, but they're from like $2 bins. I got like 4 books from a $2 bin, and I bought some work from a couple of local artists. Well, one local to Manitoba, and then one local to Saskatchewan who was in there.
Okay.
So yeah, but that was the find of the show for sure.
Have you tried to Google Translate those notes?
I haven't tried yet because I'm just looking at the images. I'm going to give it a try at some point just to see. But right now, I'm just like, last night, like there's just a few times I'll just go to the book and start looking through a few pages. And last night, laying in bed, just before bed, just going through a few pages. It's just beautiful. Yeah. I really wanted that. It was here at my bookstore, that box set. I just don't have a place to put it. I've got all the other books too, but I really wanted that box set.
It's cool. Very nice.
Yes. So the movie started getting made when Otomo was still writing the Akira manga. So the movie has an ending the manga has an ending that's different from the movie because he was only, I think, I don't know, halfway through the manga, maybe when they were doing the movie, or maybe earlier than that. So yeah, so that's why they have some differences because there was a whole bunch that he hadn't even written in the manga yet. The manga is fantastic. If this is your first time reading it, Tim, I love it. It's one of my favorites. I've read it a couple of times. And it's just a stunner. It's beautifully illustrated too. So
it's funny how this, like feels very tiny the way they comprise the book together. That the whole scenes are quite tiny little, boxes, and of course probably not a clear size what they use, but it would be much more intriguing to see it in the bigger space, like we always.
Yeah, the bigger size. Yeah, right.
Yeah, we always like to have the bigger things.
Yeah, these are bigger than just regular manga though, which is nice. Like you can see like there's your kind of regular manga size there, so it is a bit bigger already. So yeah, they're stunners though. If you ever see them in person, I wouldn't sleep on them, because I feel like it's also a book that's I think those Otomo collections are kind of selling pretty damn good for the most part, obviously depending on what the title is, right? And I think like anything Akira is probably going to sell a bit faster than anything else, right? So
yeah, it's always, no matter it's a comics or anything whatever relates to Akira, usually come like if it's a special edition, it usually sells out quite quickly as well. And what another timeless piece, yeah. That happens with manga.
Oh, okay. I don't know that one. Elfen Lied. I don't know that one. Cool.
Okay,
I'll make a note of that. I'm deep into, as you'll see this afternoon. Pardon me, as you'll see this afternoon, I'm deep into manga for some reason this week. I've surrounded by it. It's ridiculous.
I'm gonna go boring, and I'm gonna mention this. Nothing to scream about. I actually haven't even finished. I realized this is the like extra tales collected in together from the Dark Universe that DC was publishing, and they had like I was actually thinking. He says, "Well, Batman has Flashpoint, Wonder Woman, Crisis on Infinite, and Dark Metal, Knight's Dark Metal." But I actually thought this because those stories already been told. A part of that one. This is quite new, but all those stuffs like it's already been in a continuation. But it's a retelling kind of things how they twisted it because of Dark Universe people take over, and this guy whose name is Tempest Fujinot. This guy here, who's basically narrator of these whole stories, and the more Philip Kennedy Johnson wrote and Brian Hitch wrote Hush story, how like Batman, who has his upbringing, but it wasn't him because the way the first story has happened was that his parents still died in the alley, but the family next to him, which is what's it called? Matt Remain witness Elliots. So the family of Elliots who actually been in the same cinema as the Waynes, and they witnessed it of course as Bruce witnessed his murder, but because they instead of Alfred taking over bringing the Batman or Bruce Wayne to become one, the Waynes brought him up to become something else, and he actually is being killed, or that's what they thought it happened, because the Elliot one of the Elliots basically became the philanthropist, extra, like the guy what Bruce Wayne used to have as a character. And then we kind of discuss it. He's kind of discussing is I need to go with their representatives. They have his family, and this is Talia as well, who is basically his girlfriend, and he was part of Legion of those. Well,
Legion of Assassins.
Yes, they're those. And then he goes, and we see a scene where he goes in asylum, and he's going to see this doctor, and the doctor saying, "So is it actually true?" And they showing the body of the Bruce Wayne who's lying on a slab, and saying, "Well, how did this happen?" And apparently, because he was kind of like felt like he was insane, they were doing experiments, and finally he gave up on it. And they thought, okay, so this is it. No more Bruce Wayne. There's no more kind of like the bat apple on their shoulder kind of thing. So I can continue this. And then they're telling other stories. And then suddenly you see the scene. And dead Batman or Bruce Wayne appears again. And he's taking over the mantle of that. So it's quite interesting. Not very intriguing and stuff. But there's lots of kind of differences. Like because Bruce Wayne hasn't existed as a Batman, all the other Robins or Nightwing, his family is still alive, and he became an owl because he's part of an owl group. So it kind of like in different iteration. So I was reading it very randomly because I was like not really completely excited about what I was reading in a way. And this is Barbara, who we can't see, instead of being what Barbara we know as a bad girl. So I was like, okay, and I put it away because it wasn't something like, it was really good read, but nothing to blow my socks off about. Like maybe I'm just trying to like, I feel like, well, you can't really reinvent really the wheel. It just continues to become something like of the same, because the original story, and I think the original story just has kept my imagination a bit more. And then afterwards we have a Flashpoint storyline. It's actually quite a nice cover, to be honest. Batman leaning over Barry Allen's body, because what happens in this Flashpoint, Reverse Flash took over instead of Barry Allen, because Barry Allen kept trying to put the timeline correctly, and he was speeding to a light, and then because of that he lost his power. So and they say the story that the Flash doesn't strike you twice, but he struck, but instead of doing that, it did happen to him, but instead of actually he's gaining his powers, his Reverse Flash has came into existence, and Barry Allen died, and that's how the story gone forward, and where this Reverse Flash basically starts changing the timeline to a point where it basically was killing every single one of the DC Universe characters. So it's kind of okay. I have not yet read Wonder Woman ones, which I'm more intrigued than anything else, because as I say, I put it aside, but it looks intriguing. There's lots, and there's a big bad that even appears in some of the stuff. So new gods are appearing in a lot of them, but it's like because I haven't read the whole Dark Universe in generally, I'm not really sure why this is even needed. So it's kind of I'm maybe that's why I don't have that much care and attention to it, and it's just kind of like I'm reading it. It's kind of a good time to just pass by reading the comic, but it's not really giving that much excitement for me. So, and there's a volume before that, so I didn't realize, because I randomly just picked it up in my library because I saw it, and I was thinking, oh, I'm gonna give it a try, but as I say, it's not screaming to a point where like, oh my god, I needed like more information about it. So yeah, that's one of the things I read.
It's always a little. How do you find it when you read something like, because you know, like me, I'm pretty excited about sitting down and reading comics.
Yeah.
How do you feel after you read something where you're just kind of like meh? Does it kind of discourage you a bit, or how do you usually shake it?
I was like, okay, did I like, first of all, was it even worth for me going to continue? That's the thing. I've not even finished yet the whole book, and that's what drives sometimes, is it worth more for my attention now, because there's more things I would like to read. Yeah. But it's sometimes because sometimes you have to be able to be like, sometimes the books you read surprises you, so if you don't give it the whole wave chance, you never know what's the end of healing. However, if it doesn't give in 2 stories, after reading 2 stories, it still doesn't give me that much of like, do I have to really do this? So I'm kind of like, it's not a very great feeling, to be honest. In that day, I wasn't even reading any other comic book after that. So instead I was watching, like I said, The Whisper of the Heart. It wasn't what I really wanted afterwards, kind of thing, because it's kind of disappointing. But not always. I mean, I've been reading comic books for quite some time now, so I know myself that not always everything's gonna just like blow my socks off, or I'm gonna be always excited about it. So and then I guess yourself is the same thing,
Pretty much the same thing, and I think you hit it on the head. Like, yes, there's totally going to be stories sometimes where it's the journey and where it kind of evolves to, that's like the key to the book. But at the same time, with comics, it's like, well, if you don't catch my attention with something in a couple of issues, if you don't like make me care about something, or at least show me an angle that's interesting, like thematically or whatever, it's tough to kind of keep up with it. But I'm pretty much the same way, and it's the same with me with movies. I think in my life, I've only walked out of maybe 1 movie in my life. You know what I mean? Like, I not generally, I always give it a chance, right? Even if I'm not liking it, I still give it a chance, because you just never know. It's that journey and how it all ties together, right? So
exactly.
But and then as I'm getting older, you just know your tastes, so I know certain things to just stay away from, because it doesn't look like it would interest me. Although sometimes you're totally wrong. Civil War, that movie Civil War, the recent one here, the live action thing, I thought I would hate it. I thought it looked like a piece of garbage, and then I started hearing some good things about it and watched it, and I was completely wrong. I was totally wrong. It was a really damn good movie. But so you just don't know.
Sometimes you have to try. I always I'm always go and get curious about DC Universe and what they try to do. Marvel, less likely, because Marvel is very confusing me. Like, every single time I try to get into just like let's say characters, like, you showed that their soul's gonna come back on Daredevil. Maybe the character like Daredevil would maybe be more curious to try out to see. And that's like a safe point, like X-Men issue. But X-Men always gets me confused, and I get completely out of it. Doctor Strange or Daredevil, I always will try probably in Marvel Universe. But it's kind of like, if it doesn't captivate my attention on the get-go, I tend to switch off as well very quickly. But the thing most of the time happens to me with Big Two.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like those big companies like DC and Marvel is always like, maybe I'm extra hard on it because it's a big
Mm,
company, they can do better, kind of thing in
hmm.
my. But it's not always happens, you know.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So are you excited about that? So being back to
I
writing
mean, I'm
Daredevil?
excited for a Daredevil for sure. I mean, I loved the little sample of art that was there. I thought looked really great. I mean, I love Daredevil, and I'm always willing to
Uh-huh.
give it a chance if it looks intriguing. But I mean, for me, like the art has to be there. If it's an artist that I don't dig, the chances of me trying, even with a character that I really like, go way down. Not necessarily that I won't ever try it, but it doesn't get me as excited to give a book a shot.
I forgot
Like that
who's the
new Doctor
artist.
Strange stuff, I was giving a shot, and the art was pretty good, but the story unfortunately just didn't live up to anything. But yeah, I'm willing to give it. I'm looking forward to it. I feel like I haven't read any Daredevil for quite a long time, so
Mm.
it'll be kind of a welcome back to reading something with DD there, which should be fun.
So Steve McNiven is the artist,
Yep.
but I cannot think of anything what he done before.
Yeah.
What he...
I mean, Tim is in the chat. I'm sure he'll rattle off 17 titles to us. I'm so bad with some of these names too. But I do know that I know the
No, I
name
know the
for
name.
sure.
I clearly know the name.
Yeah.
The exact the sample you
He's
were showing.
Canadian,
Oh, there you go.
apparently. So right away, he's amazing. So let's just get that out of there. CrossGen's Meridium,
Uh-huh.
Ultimate Secret, Marvel Knights 4, New Avengers, and Civil War, illustrating storylines such as Old
Oh,
Man Logan.
oh, okay.
So Halifax, Nova Scotia is where he's from. Did I beat
Oh,
Tim in the comments? Yes, I
yeah.
did. Yes.
You see, Tim is probably asleep already after
Yeah, yeah,
hearing
right.
about
Yeah.
that movie. Windrise is probably on the CD somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna wait for you to pick up because I
Hmm.
know you would probably be the first one to delve, and you're a bit more brave than I am.
Yeah, for
When
sure.
it
Yeah.
comes to Marvel, I think it's true, isn't it? You even delve into Doctor Strange, and you got disappointed and
But
all
I
of
think
that.
it's much different from me for me, right? Like I can go to a shop and flip through it,
Yes,
whereas
that's
you're
the thing.
really
Yes,
taking a blind chance. Like
yeah,
you're
yeah,
just seeing a
completely.
couple of things online and giving something a shot, right? So
Yeah.
I can pick it up off the shelf and decide whether or not. So
And in many ways, that saves quite a lot of money, to be honest, not having a shop.
yeah.
Because when I even go to visit a comic shop, it's suddenly I get too excited about all the stuff,
Yeah.
and it's like,
Yeah.
but you're not gonna read this. This is just it's just because me being there is so comforting to being in a comic book shop. I just find it really like good space to be at. Like be
Mhm.
excited about where just seeing those books on those displays, and many of them, but not many of them gets you like excited. I mean, the back issues are more exciting to me than anything else.
Mhm.
So I'll show you the other
It's
books
still
which are...
fun. I still find it fun though, looking at the new shelves. Again, I always look through the Marvel and DC, even though
Yeah.
it's pretty seldom I'm going to pick something up. I always look anyway. And even the
Mm.
ones that have good covers, I just flip through. It's the classic. Oh my God, that's an amazing cover. And you open it up and it's the shittiest, my opinion, the shittiest interior art, like the most
Mhm.
bland and kind of very basic
It's
art
funny
inside.
how
It's always disappointing.
DC has kept that style of drawing like to
Hmm.
to this day. I mean, it's like no matter which book it is, especially if it's in DC line and the new continuation, whatever, you always kind of have a similar style of the way they portray each character. Almost the scenes are like page for page, and even color schemes, anything. It doesn't surprise you, but I mean, it's the whole point. It does stand out of them all. Like the Marvel now, I don't think I can tell what Marvel style of art is anymore. Used to be, yes, you will know, like the certain people who was doing those Avengers and X-Men and blah blah
Hmm.
blah, the certain way you will see. I don't know if you can say that now in Marvel. Maybe I'm wrong, because I have
Hmm.
not really read anything new in collected or in trade paper or in like comic format. So I think you're the one
Right.
who showed me more of that.
Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
speaking
it's
of
your turn.
Marvel and artists that are really good, have you heard of a
Uh-huh.
little artist that goes by the name of Isad Ribic by any
Oh, of course
chance?
I know that guy.
Yes,
The
of
guy
course you
who
do.
is taking a long time now, apparently, to draw.
The guy who did something called Shotgun Mary,
Huh?
for Antarctic Press. Yeah, exactly.
What
What
the hell is
are
that?
you exactly what? So I found this in the $2 bin yesterday at the comic or
What?
Friday at the Comic Con. I read it. It's the story is really like it's really kind of classic action movie. It
Well,
doesn't
look
really
at it. It's not
transition
doesn't look
between
like
scenes or
Alien.
whatever, but it is fucking gorgeous. So this was a one shot, and then I found out there was another Shotgun Mary miniseries, maybe 3 issues or something. I'm not sure if he did the art in that one either. I haven't dug into it. But this is such I love Ribbick's art. I love his style.
Mhm.
And this just really it's cool to see. What year? I don't know if I said what year this was from.
97, isn't it?
Yeah, 1997. Yeah, good. Did I say that already?
Yeah.
Good work.
No,
You're
I
on the
just
ball.
saw it on the comic.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. It said on the front. It's so much fun visually. It's just an absolute stunner. And stuff like this really remind me of
Thor.
yeah,
It's
that as well
Thor.
too. But there's something else I'm thinking of, and I'm looking at my shelf, and it's not. It'll trigger for me. But it's gorgeous. Yeah,
Ooh.
I mean that's all this comic is just me showing a few pages and going, it's gorgeous. Because like I said, the story is really nothing. I don't really have anything else intelligible to say about it. Then, holy
Yeah.
shit, he did something called what? He did something called Shotgun Mary. It's wild. So he didn't write it. Who was the writer? That's what I can do. Give proper credits. Story is by somebody named Mickey Horvatic. Translation: Darko McCann and Tanya Yambrisiak, I think is how you say that. So yeah,
You always find
it's
something
awesome.
like that.
I had
But you
no
still
idea that this was a thing. I know that I had it bookmarked. I had it on my wish list on Lone Star. I don't know how I heard of it. I'm assuming that I heard it. I saw it in somebody's video, like a call-in video or somebody's video, because I never would have known about this. Again, the beauty of YouTube. Someone must have showed this off, and I made a note because I recognized the cover as soon as I was flipping through. It's pretty striking, and when you're even flipping through the tops, it kind of stands out pretty good. So yeah, I'm so glad I found it for cheap because I don't think it was popping up on Lone Star at all.
So Asad Ribic is doing the Alien comic for Marvel now.
Oh yeah,
and
okay.
Apparently it's got on delays due reason is because it needs more time to draw.
Right.
So that's why it's delays. And so people who is reading Alien from Marvel comic book, I don't know who's
Well, shit, I'll have to have a look at that then.
What? Oh, Hickman is doing, isn't it? Hickman is writing and Asad is doing the art, which probably
interesting.
It looks fascinating. Just by those two names, I would have probably, if I would have been comic book shops, I would definitely look at it. So go next time, take a mental note. You go into the shop, open the Alien book, and see what's the fuss all about.
Yeah, for sure. Have a peek. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm not into, like, I don't know. I haven't watched all Aliens. I watched one, and that scarred me to nose end.
I love the Aliens movies. I think they're great.
No, what is it? What's, oh my god, I'm blanking her name. What's her name?
Sigourney Weaver.
There you go. I don't know why. I mean, it's right, when it's like, anyway. So I love the woman. I think she was fantastic in it. I think it's what's actually, when I'm thinking about Alien, just not to think about that alien creature from that mouth and comes out that second thing. Not think about those things. She's fantastic, and it's freaked the shit out of me. I'm not a person of horror movie watching, but I watched that. I think because it was my mom's thing, of course, because she would watch that because she loves stuff like that. But honestly, all the scene when she's like in pitch black, and then she's looking around, and you see in the flashback that this kind of slimy things next to her head, and she's like, I don't see it. I can't see the kind of thing. You're like, it's just like next to you, woman. But so that kind of scene always got my attention. But then it scarred me quite a bit. I remember probably having several nightmares because the coming out of this of a person's thing completely.
Yeah, the robot there.
It's
android or whatever.
Very famous scene and all that shit. And then the android guy, the actor, what's his name? I love that guy. He was everywhere. What's his name?
I don't know.
You know that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I know him. Yeah.
That's how we
I know that
talk.
jerk.
That's how we talk on this chat. You know this guy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I do. Anyway, so I'm going to show you what you have gave, because I was reading whatever you sent me.
Hey,
So,
nice. Oh
so Guy
man.
Caldwell, because I kind of like you spoke and you sent me this. Honestly, I wouldn't say I enjoyed the story, but I really like the work. So it is published in 1977. So I'm trump you by 20
Yep.
years now. So 1977, Guy Caldwell. So he it's absolutely mesmerizing. The art it took the person to create this, but the story is not for my kind of liking because it's just
Yeah, for sure.
people in prison who basically having this dream fantasies. I presume
Yep.
you would tell, where they basically think this first story was the best probably because the way he was trying to escape and you kind of believe that he's about to escape and he just has this, that kind of oh my god, it's freedom, and he's celebrating all his mates and seems to be great, fantastic. And then to his, of course, bad karma kind of thing, he's not really escaping, he's just sitting in the prison. And all this kind of like this scene here and the face and the explosions and all this kind of gun I don't know what you call them, end of the guns
The
things,
barrel, yeah.
the barrels and stuff is really cool. And I really like scenes like these, which is like looks like like they have like a black page and he scratched them out rather than actually drawn it. So I'm not really sure how he Guy Caldwell worked and what his is it actually ink and that's what he's
I
been
believe
putting
so.
out?
Yeah, I believe it is, but I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah, but it does look like you could actually do that, like like scratching out or even like just using the whites to portray all this stuff and use the black as their main point of focus and just get the figure out of that. And all this emotion parts, as I say, was really good. But honestly, it followed through with another guys in once and again the same kind of a situation where he's basically dream escaping from what he feels like, so being so realistic because they longing for touch and feeling. And this is really really beautiful. I think
So
this
good.
panel, these two pages are spot on in all levels possibly when it comes to artwork and how much work that has been done to achieve that.
That image on the top left there also
Yeah.
turned into one of the covers for Inner City Romance. He used it as one of the covers, so you get a nice color version of it as well too.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
And then he follows with that, which is absolutely mind blowing, to be honest. So yeah, it's as I say, I wouldn't say I would go and read again and get them more involved in the storylines, but I really enjoyed the work of art, what this book portrayed. And so get you more familiar as what Guy Caldwell can do. But honestly, the first, like really that page is definitely one of my favorites, like to look at more often, because the way he's portraying the motions is absolutely fantastic. Like you can feel the swelter, the heat, the uncomfortableness of it kind of thing. You also feel like this relief of like happiness and slash sadness in it, so which really works. So if you don't guys know, it's in the City Romance 3. So how many there is those? I forgot. You probably have mentioned it.
I think there's 6 or 7. Yeah, I don't remember. Then it was also collected in a book too that has everything in it, which is right. Fantagraphics put it out. I think it's still in print. So then there's this book that just collects all of the issues. And I think there might be some supplemental art pieces. Yeah, there's samples of like some of his paintings in the back and stuff too. Because and he's still active now. One of the things that I love that issue, like I think I've said to you before, it's my, like, in my opinion, it's the best underground comic out there. And part of what I love about it is this kind of, I feel like it mixes what the underground did best, doing stuff that was like political and activism, talking about prison systems, and then also focusing on like sex and stuff. And I love what he does with the, like you were saying, the first half is kind of, there's a lot of black on the page, and then that transition to the second half where it's mostly white on the page. Again, thinking about a design of a book, like putting aside all the content, just a design of a book and
Yeah,
presenting your art, I think
like
is
that.
gorgeous. Yeah, I mean, make yourself full screen on that one.
Yeah,
It's just such an amazing transition
yeah.
from one
So yeah, it's
style
quite
to another
jarring.
that is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's quite jarring when you compare that
Yeah.
kind of page, or
Or
even
even if you go to
this.
that one that you said look etched, hold those ones side by
Yeah,
side.
yeah. Wait, need to make sure. Where is it now? Oh my god, it always happens, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So you have these, which is absolutely using the black, as I say, theme, and then it goes completely black.
I
Even
mean,
thin lines and completely
yep.
different. It feels very different to what it was before. Yes, there's
Yep.
still emotions, and there's a lots of, like you say, sexual scenes in here. But
Mhm.
there's lots of differences when it comes to what express your, like, it's the same feeling, like the main, both of them are longing for the touch and expression and all that kind of, like that what you get when you are incarcerated, at the end of the day. And then that
Well, and
feel of,
also
and
the
then you
thing
have
of like
this.
what would a black man dream about? A black
Yeah,
man at that time especially would dream about freedom. What
yeah,
would a white man dream about? Even though he doesn't have freedom,
yeah.
he still just dreams about sex. Like there's so much in there story-wise, right? Like there's so much subtext that you could read into it.
And then
It's beautiful. I think Caldwell is a fucking genius. Thank God he's still around.
yeah,
And this is just like I said, it's for my money the best underground out of the undergrounds.
and
That
then
whole inner city romance, I would strongly recommend.
and I really like this as well. The end of the painted part. This one, it doesn't see, like, you can't really see quite clearly. This one feels like a bit more kind of, maybe it's blown up a bit more so you can see the more details of the art. But yeah, so I was like, cool. I mean, it's honestly, those kind of works where you see a jarring two differences in the same book is quite intriguing to see how, even though what helps him to tell a storyline, but also is how much work he placed in one, and then
Mhm.
attention given to one just because he needs to tell. That's what the story is basically asking him to do, rather than telling just a story which is the same kind of point, even though it's with a different like needs, kind of thing. One
Mhm.
wants to be free and have that to touch and feel and expression and sex, whatever you want to talk, and then the one just thinks about one thing, how to
Mhm.
pleasure, even though
Yeah.
he's incarcerated. But just pleasure is more vital for him to basically be, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's cool, man. It's a good one.
Mm. Mm. Thanks to you.
Hey, honestly, no problem. It's my pleasure.
Education.
So I'm reading
Blame
Blam.
or blam?
So it's spelled blame, but apparently it's pronounced Blam.
Oh,
So yeah, that's
so what does blam mean?
I'm not really sure. So there's these master editions that have come out
Oh,
of this series, and I'll show you the size again, like compared to just a regular manga. So it's quite a bit bigger, and it's a solid chunk of book. Like it's a thick book. So at my local bookstore, they had the first 5, I think. I don't know how many volumes it went. They did adapt it for an animated series on Netflix. So if
yeah, I'm
that's
gonna.
out there and you're interested, you can check that out too. From what I've heard, surprise, surprise, the Netflix
Not so
stuff
good.
doesn't really stay true to the book.
Ah,
So the artist is Tsutomu Nihai, I think maybe. So what I know about him is that he studied to be an architect, and then he worked in construction, and has created this book that takes place in this
ooh,
on this earth, in this machine, in this world that is dominated by artificial intelligence, and it keeps growing, it keeps building. There's builders, there's different groups of people that are in there. One of the groups are called the builders. Their sole purpose obviously is to keep adding on and building to this structure. There's the safety net, I guess. Like there's these security kind of guards almost, that try to keep what humans we've seen so far, which haven't been that many. Our main character, we're pretty sure he's a human, and he's searching for other ones. He's looking for this particular gene that exists within a human being so they can tap into the net or the web and somehow free them from this thing that they don't really fully understand. Even the inhabitants that live in this reality, they'll turn corners or climb up a flight of stairs and it'll be completely different, or get into this locked room in the second volume and be met with this other world that they're like, what the hell is this? Where did this come from? So it's this really interesting kind of sci-fi story about, like, I guess what's called liminal spaces. So like spaces like hallways going into rooms and things like that, because the majority of the book is him wandering through this world and making these discoveries as he's going to look for this one particular gene, and just the different people and things that he interacts with. So again, the classic kind of wandering samurai type of story, right? Where the stories come from who you run into on your journey. And then, of course, there's an overarching story too. But even after the second book, I don't know if I fully understand the world or some of the goals of the characters. So I feel like there's still a lot of mystery. And I don't think that's necessarily due to the writing. It's due to the fact that it's how it's paced, classic kind of manga, stretching things out as long as possible. Well, not with that intention, but like stretching moments out as opposed to kind of like quickly showing you a bunch of action all the time. And there's these bursts of action. It's an amazing book. Through this, I discovered this YouTube channel, Dami Lee, and she's an architect, and she talks about this book in one of her videos and how it relates to the real world of architecture. And it's a fascinating YouTube channel. I've been kind of addicted to it. I watched a few videos yesterday. She has one where she talks about Akira, actually going back to that. But she'll talk about like science fiction and manga and anime and how it relates to kind of the architectural world, how it relates to our world. If it's based on some concepts from famous architects. She talks about this book being very influenced by like brutalism, that it's these hard lines and shapes, because that's the idea, is that we're humans. This is the cityscape. We have you kind of trapped to some degree, right? So it's this, you don't get any freedom in a world that's just filled with brutalist architecture, I guess. So fascinating channel and all these conversations, but I'm really, really digging this book. This is a lot of fun. It was one of them that Brandon Graham had talked about in one of the Living the Line videos. He made a mention of this in passing. So when I saw it, I decided to give it a shot. So I'm into it for sure. So I'll be getting as much as I can. Again, don't know where the hell I'm going to put them, but and I do like this kind of bigger size for this as well too, and the thickness. It's still easy to sit and read. It doesn't feel hefty or anything, and it's not too big that it's difficult to kind of flip through. But such a good book, man. Such a good story so far.
So you into manga, eh?
I mean, I always have been a little bit, but it just feels like these things popped up for me where it's like, oh, I want to try that, and then I found this at the comic convention, and then this other Living the Line book came in the other day, and then Orochi was on the bookshelf, a volume that I had missed. So it just seemed like all of this stuff was dropping into my lap this week. It wasn't by design. It just kind of a fluke that it all sort of came together.
It happens.
Yeah.
Now you're going to have to dedicate a shelf for your manga.
I know, that's the hard part, right? Like, because there ain't one. So I'm going to have to figure something out behind me down there at the bottom, maybe somewhere.
Maybe you just have to DIY a box for the manga.
Yeah, but even that, I don't know where the hell I would put it. I guess I could mount some little shelf here. That would be actually pretty good.
There you go. You see, we already found a solution.
Yep.
So I'll continue exploring whatever you send. So honestly, I have this because it's Mobius, but not Mobius, but it's Mobius World. I wasn't really much of I don't really thought of the giving like, oh, it's gonna be something intriguing that's gonna interest me that much. But then I was reading the story, and it's actually, I was wrong, and I was more than intrigued to know what's happening in here. And the only thing what's frustrating with these stories is the words they use for the worlds. It's like this world is arm drawn, and you like tongue twister big time, and your memory does like already I forget names and forget places and all that stuff. But it's kind of like this is even more harder to know the names and places because of the words they've been using, like um blue tarn grown. What is tar grown? I don't have a clue. I didn't even go look for it. But we're following this character who is like she's like a detective slash kind of like she explores and like I'll give you she is a registered tale, like that's how they call it. So her name is Finnegar, which in itself is kind of interesting name. And she follows this dude who Roman Dudros, and then she's basically looking to see if because he got into troubles, and she's following you through to see what it is, how it is, why he has so much protection, but she's still there, kind of going for it. And then by the time while she's tailing him and seeing what he's been up to, and we're spending the money of whatever, she gets into she basically needs to be saved, and she's kind of explaining what she's doing, how she came to be doing this job, because this fractional police came into her savings. And I was like, I don't really know the world, but then at the back of the book it actually explains to you that Eta Garage, or Major Grubert, has created this world from his own starship. So starship called Siguri, and he created these three worlds, and we are one of the worlds where this revolution happens, and the people who get involved, and this all messages and all that's clear things happening around it. It's very important because it seems to be that this Siguri world is at stake. And this Major Grubert is basically getting this team together to investigate and to make sure that this world gets to be survived. And honestly, I've been reading. I was like, my mind was traveling to see if it's like, okay, am I into this or am not? But the more I was reading, the more the conversations were happening, the more I've about finding out about the Finnegar, because he was managing to tell you in the storyline as well. I actually would like to know what's happening in here more. But I was like, actually, I had this idea that I actually had one of those, but I don't know why, but I don't have it. I've been looking because I don't know if sometimes I don't file it things properly, especially if it's a single issue. So I tend not to put it in the right place, or I don't even know where the place to put it, basically. And somehow it basically loses itself in my many things around, in the stacks of books. So if I find it, because I have this idea that I know I've seen it, because Mobius has been always mine kind of thing, which I'm curious about, but it's not really his work, but it's what he's creating beforehand, that basically this book is using to create more stories out of it. But it's not bad, and I honestly wanted to understand more about why this world is in first place being created, but I don't know where to find that. So I was thinking I'm going to ask you. Maybe you know more about this than I do.
I don't, because I don't even think I have all the issues of it. One of the draws for me with that stuff that's like Mobius universe is sometimes in some of the issues at the back they'll have stuff from Mobius, and those are usually where the draws for me. So I've never read that whole miniseries because I don't know if I have it all, to be honest.
Yeah, it's funny how they created a Shatner X world.
Yeah, right.
It's like, what? But that's an Epic Line, which is Epic Line has never been kind of like I think the more focus I've got on the Epic Line since the Blueberries editions. That's when the Epic, and then you were having on that thing you went for, like you were doing with other like those obscure lines that you were collecting more and more.
Yeah,
but that's how it goes, you know. You pick
it's kind of
one
Marvel's Vertigo, I think, at that time, right? Like it was sort of their version if they were to do a Vertigo.
Yeah, and it's 4 parts as well. So I was looking on eBay to see if there's any of them, and it's barely like one of that kind of thing. So I guess it would be in those bins, as you call them, because I don't think people would be having much of a care and attention to give, like I wasn't really. Well, preconceived notion of like, I don't think I will be enjoying that much because it's like made from one thing to another thing, just creating another thing.
Yeah.
But honestly, I like the character Finnegar. I like the way she's communicating. She was fascinated by this dude one of the main soldiers, and she was like, "Oh, you're such a beautiful," like the way she was talking to him, and what you expect female to get talked by a man. Like you're
Hmm.
too beautiful. So why don't you like say, look at like your body, and you look so sexy. And kind of it's in a dialogue in her head, but it's kind of funny the way she was explaining about how much kind of like crush she had on him straight away.
Right.
It looks too beautiful. This must like the guy with a mustache kind of thing she was talking. It's kind of interesting. So yeah, I honestly wouldn't mind finishing to like this story in generally, because I'm intrigued enough. But of course, if I'm gonna get hold of it, but you always try to, and that's the thing I'm learning. I think it's more learning from you now, that you randomly putting some books for me to send, and then if I
Hmm.
don't give a chance to read it, I will never know if I actually enjoying it. So like
Hmm.
that kind of step is sometimes quite difficult to take. And the
Totally.
more
Yeah.
and the more I'm into this kind of like, no, just read and see for yourself. Why would we all have those notions of like, oh, judging book by cover. It's a really good
Yeah.
saying, very quickly. But yeah, I just sit down, and honestly, I was reading through it. It's like actually really good. I would like to know
Hmm.
what's gonna happen next, because she gets in trouble, and as I say, those three. Why would you have another world created inside a starship? That's another thing. That's more intriguing for me than maybe the story in itself. So I wonder if this
Hmm.
Major Grubert story has any leg somewhere else, because it has like this inner dialogue here. It's kind of like he sits down and basically tries to spin this. But I'm so confused by what I read in here. It's like I could not understand half of it what he was saying, because
Well,
there's
and I think
something
that's
else.
because there is a Dark Horse did one of the Mobius books is called The Major. I think it came
Yes.
out this year, and it's
Yeah.
all stories on him and stuff. And what little I know about the Airtight Garage universe, which isn't very much,
Yeah.
I found it really confusing and difficult to get into, because it really is this
Oh.
stream of consciousness kind of,
Mm-hmm.
from my perspective. Maybe it goes somewhere and kind of evolves once you kind of get further into it, but I couldn't break into it. So I never did read everything from Airtight Garage, because I think they do a bunch of it in one of the Epic magazines that I got upstairs, but I just couldn't. I don't know. There was just something about it that just wasn't appealing to me. And his art style at that time starts getting more and more minimal. I can appreciate it. I don't always love it,
Yes.
So it's really because Mobius' stuff has always gone through this change
Transition.
throughout his career, like a good artist should. Their art should change. That's just natural, right? And there
Mm-hmm.
was this sweet spot in that later era stuff. Was he was always kind of minimal to some degree, but it just got
Yes.
even more minimal. It was almost like, I guess, Brandon Graham, his style, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, where it's very minimal lines, just making up these shapes and objects and things, right? And for the Mobius stuff, some of that doesn't quite work for me all the time. I don't know what it is about it, but it's just something about it that doesn't kind of immediately appeal to me.
Yeah, this sense of this the storyline is like, like he always kind of like you in what's inside the Mobius head, how he's processing all the stuff, what kind of storylines he wants to tell since he's been doing it for so long. And then it seems to be he kind of like creates this godlike creatures, like what Magus feels like supposed to. He has this ship, he decides to create this universe free kind of space and like universes inside that. So he's basically
Hmm.
playing God, and now he's basically has to take this other soldiers who are supposed to like create like or police or wardens of wherever, and basically go and then sort them out because they're not behaving the way he's expecting them to behave. So it kind of
Hmm.
feels that way. But as I say, the languages they've been using, all the words they're creating, is becoming such a nothing memorable about them. It's very difficult to keep that in your memory and see. But that Major himself seems to be intriguing enough. It depends, of course, also because I haven't read anything about Major much. Well, I heard about it. Now that you mention about him
Hmm.
releasing the Major, now would be intriguing. Probably I will scour YouTube and see if anybody mentioned that book and what they're saying, what's
Hmm.
inside. Because honestly, later stuff like you say of Mobius has not been as fascinating to me what his earlier stuff was, because
Hmm.
I think like that simplistic art style, and even furthermore just couple scribble lines never not always works for me. Like no, I want still some sort of detail or expressionism in that kind of like more compact maybe way, but it still tells you a bit more than just like couple of lines. There's
Mhm.
there's a story here by Mobius apparently, which I've completely blanked it because I thought it's just an extras, and this is just scribbles.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't actually, honestly, haven't read it because I thought this is just an extra. But then you realize
Mhm.
all this hints of blue, like like Mobius work, because it's that specific nose he's using, the eyes and all that stuff. But honestly, I have not read it because it didn't make sense to me afterwards. Like this completely simplistic, like shadowing things, which is basically barely used. Oh, sorry, I should have shown there. So I'll probably gonna go back and read this to see if that makes any more sense to me of that. But honestly, this that's the end page. So it's 4 pages. So honestly, I thought just the extras or just the storytelling, but apparently that's his work as well.
Mhm.
So
You can
anyway,
still hear me? Hey, my screen totally froze up there for a second.
oh yeah, I can hear you. So
Yeah.
maybe it's
Okay.
me.
All right. Yeah.
Maybe it's just
Just
me.
I thought my computer crashed for a sec. Everything just all of a sudden stopped moving, and yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No. Maybe it's just my internet. I told you always when I host, my internet's a bit shoddy.
Yeah. No, this was something different. This was definitely on my end. This one.
Okay.
It was something different. I don't know if my computer is doing something or what, but yeah.
Oh, updating. That's the best way to. It's like
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Updating. We found a virus. We must shut you down immediately.
without my consent.
Yeah.
You're gone. Bye. Okay, your turn.
I'll talk about this one. So, this was something that I pre-ordered from, or not pre-ordered, sorry. I ordered from my bookstore, and it came in super quick. So this is from the Living the Line has a sub imprint called Smudge, and it's Ryan Holmberg, kind of the modern day guru of translating Japanese manga and knowing kind of the ins and outs of it. This is something that he's doing with Sean Michael Robinson at Living the Line. This one, and then there's another one called Her Frankenstein that's on its way to me. This was a total blast of kind of an alien invasion type of story, where there's a spaceship that's crashed on Earth. The pilot gets pulled out of the wreckage and started to get, not experimented on yet. They don't just dissect him or anything, but the government hides all of the proof and evidence and starts doing their own research on it. But what they haven't realized is that this alien is a scientist from another galaxy who's been going around collecting specimens from other planets. So he's collected these mushroom spores from another planet, and it turns out that they're sentient creatures. And we sort of get a Invasion of the Body Snatchers-esque type of story, but then it's also sprinkled with like actual folk tales from China and Japan, from their mythology that deal with mushrooms and stories and little tales that deal with that mushrooms play a big part in the story. This was really great. It reminds me a little bit. There's this sort of Umez type of style of manga for these horror mangas, and it has tastes of his stuff, but somehow with, I think, a little more character, because they're not 100% there, but they do still look really sharp, like this kind of classic manga, but heavy blacks on some of the pages, which is also super appealing. And eventually we do get some super cool mushroom creatures. So it basically attaches itself to humans or enters their system, and starts triggering them to want to dig and plant themselves in the ground, and be completely accepting of that idea. So I won't spoil the ending, but that's kind of like the gist of it. And it just kind of goes from there. I thought the ending was fantastic. And then, as usual with anything that Ryan Holmberg does, there's always a nice section of back matter. So this one is someone taken from a book put out in 1997, I think, that's getting a reprint, talking about Shirakawa Marina, who is the creator of this story. and
Mhm.
talking about this book and a couple of his other books, giving some samples. And then Ryan Holmberg himself does a few pages where he shows some covers for the original volumes of some of his stories and does like a brief paragraph on, you know, what that particular book was. And some of this stuff is so great. I would love to see an art book where it just recreates a bunch of these old manga covers, because the colors on them are always outstanding. The images are always super cool looking. So just from like an art perspective, they're pretty amazing looking stuff. So yeah, a really great book. I'm really looking forward to this Her Frankenstein. And hopefully, I mean, I'm assuming they have a bunch more planned for this Smudge line, but
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a fun one to get some stuff that maybe hasn't been reprinted in English before, or maybe even, you know, isn't something that's on our radar over here, right? So yeah,
Oh.
really good.
So they have like lots of like they publishing now. They have somebody imprints now of doing that.
Yeah,
So
it's crazy.
now, when you read it translated, like specifically, they acknowledge that it's been translated work. Does it feel clunky, or does it feel smooth sailing when you read, and then there's nothing like questionable the way they chose
Um,
to put the sentence together?
I mean, I feel like there's always going to be a sense of maybe stiltedness, because
Mm,
you're trying to translate. I'm sure it's not direct translations. He's trying to put a spin on it that would read well as English. I
yeah.
find his stuff reads just as good as most other things that I've read Japanese translated, you know. I
Mm,
know exactly what you're talking about, because it can totally go the other way where it just
yeah.
is so clunky. I wouldn't say that this is clunky at all. It read
Yeah.
really smoothly. I would say the way that it's clunky is that at its heart, again, like this is something for like young readers, you know.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's like something for kids, quote unquote. So it
Mm,
reads in that way, where it is being
mm,
written for a younger audience, even though there's some really dark themes in it. And I think that's also the addition of like this sort of folk tales, giving you as a young reader a sense of who you are as a Japanese person, or in this
yeah.
case also Chinese person, because they talk about some of that. Like, it's just a really cool mix of trying to be a little educational, trying to be a little horror, trying to be a little still welcoming to young readers, because I mean the main character is a young boy.
Mm,
So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah,
mm.
but yeah, not clunky is the short answer. Not clunky.
Okay. Because well, I
Yeah.
think it's not really. I mean, sometimes I find it maybe it's because they put an idea into you. Because I've remember reading French translated comic book, and they basically the first thing, the first pages you turn in, and it says being translated. And the minute you get that idea of it's being translated, your head automatically kind of looks if it's gonna be something you're gonna notice, or something is not gonna
Right.
be right for you to understand. Because there was some moments where those translated books hasn't had, because they don't have the same phrases as you use, for example, or in English, or the way it's European style, or it's the way your America's, like the culturally wise, how we're using some phrases, we sometimes don't understand each other due to that, because
Yeah,
there's some
totally.
different mannerisms and all that stuff, and it usually does translate when it's written in the book format, like quite clearly, because it just does. You don't understand the culture as well. That's what another thing comes
Hmm.
into play, and then you have to be
Hmm.
extremely good translator, or actually know the culture by itself, for you to be
Yep.
able to kind of like put it together, so it was like Europeans or whatever would understand that what idea of Asians kind of like way of speaking and how you portray emotions and stuff like that. So that's
Yeah,
why I wanted to
totally.
ask,
Yeah.
because I always wonder that all the time, every single time I picked up something which has been translated from foreign language into English, for example, and stuff like that. So that's
Yeah,
why.
no, and I think you're right. Like the expressions are a big part of it, right?
Yeah,
And how we use words to
yeah,
illustrate a concept or something.
yeah,
Like it can't be easy. And I think the other side of it is because I don't understand Japanese or read Japanese,
yeah,
it's hard not to like. It's hard because I mean, if you could read both side by side, like the original and the translation,
yeah.
you'd obviously have a much better idea. But yeah, it must be really difficult because you want to like make it readable, but you also don't want to change too much of the original text and the original ideas that were in there. So
Yeah.
finding that balance has got to be really tough, man.
So, for example, it's not maybe not the right example, but even though like what you're watching anime or you're watching, as I say, like something translated, and we put subtitles, or they're not putting subtitles, but they actually voice it. So I used to
Yeah.
hate the most because my country is doing a lot. Like the animation movie comes out, and they basically Lithuania, my country, would employ an actress to basically dub, and it doesn't
Yeah.
feel the same. And you watch an
I hate
English
the dub.
version,
Yeah.
and it's completely opposite because it doesn't have the same feeling. Like it's the same with anime. I do not like reading that much. Sometimes it gets really tiring because, but I like original sound because the
Yeah.
emotions is absolutely different to what you actually see.
I
So
agree.
that's
I
and I
I
think it's
I don't think people should watch dubbed stuff. I really don't. I mean, you think I should, because you're 100% right. Like, you're losing all that actor's
yeah,
inflection in their own voice, the
yeah,
emotion.
yeah,
It just can't be created because it's some jackoffs from another country who aren't invested in the project going, yeah, just read the lines, whatever. I guess he's kind of excited in this scene, so
yeah.
read it a little more excited. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think it's a horrible thing to do the dubbed versions.
So we earlier were talking about Ghibli, yeah, and I
Hmm.
watched one with English actors, and then I
Hmm.
watched original like Japanese with subtitles, yeah. And also, and so I don't know what maybe Ghibli knows, or maybe they are really invested in who they employ and how they will command, or how do they gonna talk, or have the actors. It felt kind of like okay, not like wasn't as jarring, but still you felt like there was something missing going on, yeah. So it's kind of
Yeah.
interesting how that goes because in the books, for example, you sometimes have that as well. So your computer is really making noises.
It's really, yeah, sorry. It's really dinging, and it had a notification that came up, and I don't know what the fuck is going on with it. It's been dinging like that for days now, and I've done
It's
diagnostics and I've done all sorts of things, and I don't know how to make it stop. It's like trying to alert me to something, but there's no
uh,
alerts that are coming up. Although that
and then
one time there was an alert that came on the screen, but
uh,
yeah, so I don't know. It's actually really fucking pissing me off and frustrating me because I can't stand that dinging. It's just doesn't end, you know.
that's why I
So
don't
trust
have.
me, it's not because I'm popular. It's because my computer is shit. It's not that I'm getting message after message. It's that my computer sucks.
So you're not blowing up, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. I haven't done an unbelievable tweet that's blowing up. Yeah.
PCs, and that's why I honestly I never liked PC that much. I mean I don't like Apple, but Apple's is usually very quiet, so I tend to have that
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
of that quietness sometimes. Anyway,
Well, and I thought I
uh,
found a setting to shut it off. So I clicked some buttons. I'm like, yeah, there you go. And it's like, no, it's still fucking going. Like,
yeah.
there's no alerts. Like, anyway,
Yeah, let's
I'm gonna
digress
punch
to a
the
comic book,
computer
right?
later and it'll be fine. Yeah.
So this is my first because of you sending me. This is
Hey.
my first experience reading Modern Displays, and there are a couple of things. Uh, because of course, I've never heard of Pioneer Comics. I've never thought they like something even exists as a part of you sending it to me. So this is Peter O'Donnell's and Jim Holdaway's what storytelling of Modesty Blaze. I don't know who you like. I mean, I whatever I've read in here is my first experience of Modesty Blaze in generally, and I honestly. So this is issue number 8. There's a storyline at the beginning of it which didn't make any kind of sense. Somebody is in trouble who is part of her life, and she was really scared. They went into basically they found him in distress. They called the ambulance. They were about to 50 and 50 if he's going to survive. It survived, and that's the first storyline, which I wasn't even understanding really the kind of importance of it. But this second story, which called Mr. Sun, it's actually was really so I enjoyed it so much. I want to know what more is happening after, but of course I looked online and there's no Pioneer comic books in existence apparently when I looked it up. On eBay there's 2 of them, like maybe 2 copies, and they're all based in America. I mean the sellers are in America, so I cannot get hold of those. But they are collected. So maybe I wanted to ask you, Terence, you can tell me maybe you know where this collected story
I sure do.
from.
When
Oh,
we
there you
when we
go.
come back, I will show you where they're collected. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
so the story is about this guy who's been saved by Modesty Blaze in Hong Kong, and he's in trouble because he sees this picture on the newspaper, and he is suddenly needing a lot of money. Always, there's really kind of weird printing design. So they have this one really big panel and several small ones, which is kind of difficult to read because there's like quite a small text, but of course I still enjoy it. And it seems to be the artists use. I've noticed there's this thing going on. Most of the characters, their eyes are closed or pre-closed, or they're looking down, which kind of, so maybe it's because it's the strength of the artist, or it's just the way he's been. Because look, it's just non-stop. So all of them are looking
Interesting.
down.
I never noticed that before. The benefit of blown up panels like that. Yeah, I never
Yeah.
noticed that before.
So all of them looking down most of the time. They in thought or something like that, but never like not many of them has open eyes. Basically, what I'm trying. Apart of Modesty Blaze, she did. So anyway, so he's in trouble, and there's this dude who's like, I don't know, he's like really kind of like a mob guy, or he's one of those kind of like behind the curtains who's been like basically like authorities are looking for him, and this guy decides basically to go and ask help of him, and he finds an opportunity how to use this situation to his own advantage. Once again, the proof of the pudding, all of them looking down.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
I mean, it makes me want to revisit the story to check that out, actually.
So it's very intriguing storyline where he's basically going to bad guy. He knows he's not doing the things. He's kind of desperate. He's saying to him like, I'll do any jobs. And then he says like, okay, so the guy's basically offering, okay, so you're gonna kill somebody. I need you to kill someone. It's like, well, I can't do murder. So he's always, although he seems to be in trouble and he's desperate to get those like what it's like 10,000 Hong Kong dollars, which is quite a bit of big money, and he's going to this guy who is not really known for being a good guy, and then he's still negotiating to what kind of extent of job he's going to do, and what it's end up being with it's basically the story disclosing it that he is the one who's been saved by Modesty Blaze. He's the one who's been kind of helped by her throughout his life because he was in a bad situation when he was a child. Now he's in university, he's supposed to be being a good student, and then suddenly one picture in a newspaper has changed that completely, and he's in desperation to get the money. And then we jump into 6,000 miles away in England, where Modesty Blaze is showing her skills, and she's basically on like, like just trying to be having this like an exercise or training done. And then we have this guy coming into to having a conversation with her, and throughout that point it's just like extra matter for her to basically end up understanding that this guy in Hong Kong is in trouble. And we also have like one really good like fighting scene that is not many of them, but there's like a fantastic page where she's basically having a fight with one of her handlers, and then she's showing off her skills, but she's been still kind of fought and defeated because she wasn't lifting her elbows properly, or she was was complacent in the fight. So anyway, it's really cool. I mean, I want to know, it didn't tell what's happening because it ends into where she goes into Hong Kong, she meets some people, and the story's finished, and I don't have anything else to say because there's no more to tell. And it ends with she's going towards that guy's place, and how this issue ended. And I actually really would like to know the end of the story. So you say it collected in?
It sure is. And before I tell you that, huge shout out to Earl Grey. Sorry, not Earl Grey. Gore Vidal. Sorry, Gore Vidal is the one that first turned me on to Modesty Blaze. There's a whole series of books as well too, and I've got some of the paperbacks, and they're fantastic. So, from your side of the world, Titan Books did a series of collected a bunch. There's more than this. I only have 4. in the mid 80s. I want to say, like, I think I read that it said 85 or something. Yeah, 1985 for this one, and it prints it out in kind of like the strip form, like the
machine.
Sunday strip kind of
Yeah,
form, right?
because it doesn't feel right in here on the comic
Yeah,
format. It
and it
feels too
does just
small.
page after page,
Yeah.
and it's so good. And again, for especially fans like us who are huge Miss Tree fans, like this hits all of those same spots.
Yes.
And like
Yeah,
Gore
and more.
Vidal himself says, that the story is so much about her relationship with her buddy there, whose name I'm blanking on. Willie is his
Yeah.
name. It's
Yes.
a lot about their relationship, and the further you get into the books, it really is like they have an amazing relationship, and she's such a badass character. He's really great. Like it's worth hunting. It's worth hunting for this Titan stuff. This might be a little easier to find. I don't know what prices go for on things. I haven't the faintest idea for these kind of things, but I think you can find these out there. And I mean, just to show you, like, this is what's advertised on the back, right? So it's right in this 80s time period of Titan books. And there are these beautiful kind of magazine sizes. So there's that one. So that was book 1 that was released. This is book 2 that was released. What's it called there? Mr. Sun. And then I've got one, Death of a Jester. And then the last one is this Warlords of Phoenix. And each of these books contain the full story. So I think when they did that Pioneer Comics stuff, because she also appeared in this fanzine called Comics Scene, I think is what it was called. And they would reprint some of the strips in there as well, too. So I think Pioneer was taking some of that material, blowing it up to try to lay it out to be like a comic book, to try to get a new audience involved in it. Because I imagine there's, even to this day, there's people who don't necessarily want a book full of just comic strips. So they tried to make it appeal to a different market. Those Pioneer ones, I don't see very much. I don't know how many issues they did. I don't know anything about that company whatsoever, if they did more stuff. But it's not stuff that I see out there that often. But I'll keep my eyes out. But yeah, look for the Titan stuff.
So one of the trade paperbacks is £60.
60. Which one is that? Is what one of the early ones?
It's the Inca Trail.
Inca Trail. Okay,
I
yeah.
know. Is it a big book? It doesn't say
£60, hey?
Yeah, for that one.
That's crazy.
Our ones is like free when somebody asking £150 for it.
For 3 of them, £150.
Yeah, I'm talking about. Don't forget, I'm talking eBay prices, which is our.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
No, it's not all of them are like that. But so the story I'm reading here, can you tell me which is the one I need to look for? Is it old?
That I don't know. Does it say what it's called inside the issue or on the cover?
£64 for that story. So I found it says it's called Mr. Sun.
Yeah, Mr. Sun. So that's this one here. That's book 2, Mr. Sun.
Okay. So yours is a different edition to what I actually see.
Okay.
In actual, because they've been reprinted apparently as well. By the way, quite a few times.
They have. That's the thing. They've been reprinted in a bunch of places, and I know that there was even bigger collected books that kind of go into the lore of it and stuff. Like one of my old comic shops that's not there anymore, he had a couple of the books, like of those books. It didn't have comics in it. It had more kind of information, so I never ended up picking them up. But yeah, I think it's been reprinted in a bunch of places.
Yeah, so that one is particularly somebody's asking £65 for it. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. But like you said, that's eBay prices.
Yeah.
That seems a bit steep to me, but
yes, like what is going on? So it's like just normal paperback. It's like nothing special. It's just like her on the cover, and there's 2 colors, like schemes, like a lighter blue or brown. So maybe it's just some sort of edition.
Yeah, that could be, or one of the later editions.
Yeah, crazy, £75.
And I like this. I like this format, honestly. Like it's really nice. Again, it's a little bit closer to, like a European format, even though it's kind of magazine size. I really like it. And the books aren't too thick, and it reads really nicely. Like the reprints are really great.
So this is the edition I'm talking about. So this is the way it looks.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yes. I've seen those editions too. Yeah.
And then look at how much they
Yeah,
are.
those are
70.
newer editions than these ones.
Yeah. So they are 70, what, £6? What dollars this is in here.
Crazy.
So crazy price. So
Yeah.
yeah, when I saw it, it's like, oh, because that's why I was like looking for Pioneer. There's some of like the issue 2 Pioneer, which is like £8 on eBay. But that, I was just, like when you read something, you're curious about it. So yeah, Mr. Sun, it would have been interesting to see if I can find it. But as I see, like what I see on eBay prices is not very confident about.
Yeah, no, for sure. Keep digging. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're out.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
My turn. Yeah, go ahead. What?
No. Espionage tale is always gonna get my attention. It's those female-led characters, which is exactly
Totally.
up my alley. Yeah.
And honestly, like I think she's a character that you'll love. Like once you start reading more, it's just it's so good. And again, huge shout out to Gore Vidal. It's purely because of Gore Vidal.
Yeah.
So in the $2 bins, here's a Viz that I'd never heard of called Mermaid's Dream. From what I was looking on CLZ, I think this only went 3 issues, and it's right from the mid 90s. So this is 1994 when Viz was doing a lot of books. Stuff that I've read and talked about on the channel too. I've never heard of this one. I feel like I recognize Rumiko Takahashi's name, but I just don't know where from. Some of the names, like they may ring a bell, but I just can't. I'm not smart enough to place all of the names yet because it's difficult to say the least. This is a pretty bizarre little story.
That's a little old school.
About apparently, if you eat the flesh of a mermaid, you will live forever.
Oh,
so that's kind of the basic premise of this story, and we get this kind of figure lurking in the trees, and he stumbles on this couple that are all bloodied and bruised, crashed out on the rocks. Both of them survive. He ends up taking the woman, and the guy ends up going back to his village, and the search is on. It's just a bonkers story, and it has these kind of bursts of crazy violence as he rips this head off of an animal there. It's a strange one, but it's super, super appealing. And it's this, they kind of realize, and then you get great shots like this too. Like that is just such a classic. This whole character is really, it feels like a classic horror manga type of character. So it turns out that our 3 main characters all have this kind of ability. They've all at one point eaten the flesh of a mermaid. So it's now this Frankenstein. It turns almost into this Frankenstein type story. The villagers hate this guy in the mask. It turns out that did we see that scene yet? She gets backed up into a cave and realizes that she's surrounded with skulls and skeletons. So this guy has been eating people and animals and stuff and kind of terrorizing the town. So that's kind of why they want to finish him off. But like a good Frankenstein story, they end up feeling for the monster and feeling for him in his isolation. And that's kind of where it leaves off for this first issue. Like I said, I think there was only 3 issues reprinted by Viz. But it was really intriguing, and I love the art style. I thought was really, really nice. It's nice having that contrast of kind of the clean, very precise kind of classic manga characters, and then this monstrous guy covered in bandages. And then I guess there's a Mermaid Forest graphic novel, which I didn't look into. But Viz at this time was doing some really amazing stuff. So it's great to pick this stuff up, especially when it's cheap. I don't know how easy it's going to be to find the other 2 issues, but my eyes are open. So there you go.
That old school art style of manga.
Yeah, me as
well. Because I watched lots of anime of that style. Growing up, it's really comforting to look at, and I really like it. One of those characters with that one eye, it looks like Naruto character. Who is like, they use earth to manipulate with, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because they're all covered in the things, and they only have one eye.
Hmm.
find it like straight away familiar with that. So what is it called again? Remind me.
It's called Mermaid's Dream,
Oh, interesting. I never seen
and then the
it.
artist is Rumiko
Taka.
Takahashi, I think.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah,
translated.
Takahashi. Yeah.
And it's translated well. So my last book, which I'm gonna talk about, well, books, let's say this way, is because of the vertigo rumor. But I didn't realize I'm gonna give
Oh,
it.
yes.
I'm gonna finish hopefully this because I attempted numerous times, and I've not fully committed to it. It seems to be because I didn't have attention, nor or it seems to be kind of like I always get distracted by it. But I was like thinking this is needs to be done. So I was surprised, but there's like quite a lot of issues because I honestly thought that this is a Vertigo through and through. But as you can clearly see, DC is first. So it's about almost 20 odd issues. No, maybe less.
I
It
think
was
it's
still
more than that for that Shade the Changing Man. I think it's quite
was
a
it
bit more.
30? Was it 30? Well,
Could be, yeah.
something like that. But anyway, it had label of DC and then it turned into Vertigo title because if you do commit to reading the every part of this comic book and you start reading the first issue did not have the letters page, but they start having letters page, and it mentioned that originally this was as a miniseries, but it got so popular and it was so out of everything whatever it was produced in that era that they had a go ahead to continue as becoming outgoing issues. So that's why how far I was saying that to myself that I have not given this a chance. And it's by the way, if I have not mentioned, it's by Peter Milligan and Chris Bachalo, because I don't know if now I am because I think I'm the more reading this in Changing Man, the more I like Bachalo the way he's here than what he's now. It's like a bit more too mainstream for me. So the one I can think of is the Chris Bachalo was working on Doctor Strange book, which wasn't a very good written book, and it was doing a lot of X-Men. I think it was the couple of years where he's kind of came back. I don't know if he's doing anything now. Terrence, maybe you can tell me. Is Chris Batchel or Chris, whatever how you pronounce his
Honestly, I'm not sure. Yeah, I really don't know.
And the way I was reading the story, it seems to be I wasn't really paying much attention. But this is the more, that's the beauty about comic books, or in generally whatever you have reading. You have to read in the right space of time, attention, whatever. It's just the right time for you to give this work so you can actually understand what you're going. And knowing Peter Milligan, I've been reading more Peter Milligan stuff now, and I'm more experienced to understanding his kind of way of writing, how obscure and how out of norm his writing is, and what kind of stories he's using. And of course, it does help to have this creature called Shade the Changing Man, which is originally was created, if you're not aware, by Steve Ditko, which is apparently, which I maybe have not realized that, but his run of Shade Changing Man was cut short one issue before the actual end of the storyline. So we don't have the end of the storyline by Steve Ditko, and we'll never have, because the man is not here anymore with us. So another tidbit of information for you guys, whoever you're watching. And this story starts with this girl who is very in love, but she's having this, and she's recollecting these things what's happened to her, because she seemed to be always in trouble with her mind and the way she thinks. And what it kicked off for her is this nice trip to see her parents with this new boyfriend of hers, and it's all the scenes and things happening in Louisiana where they're not really open to interracial relationships. And then, but she was so not afraid to do that, and introduced her new boyfriend to her parents, even though she has seen them in a while. And this key, and before they like arrived at the parents' house, they having this scene of enjoyment on the field, and she's the most happiest memory she's ever had. They all loved up, everybody's happy, until she opens the door to the house, where the new house their parents are living in, looking for them, and it cuts like the same panels, but all of them has a difference to say what she's feeling in that moment. And what is the scene afterwards, which is actually really well done in printing wise. Her parents have been murdered by this dude. She actually witnessing it happen to her. Not only that what she's witnessing, and it's like almost like, you know, like blood winter, whatever, that, you know, the more scenes, the bloody scenes you can ever imagine. He's charging towards her. And what it happens is that boyfriend of hers who's trying to deduce is helping her, but because of the locations they chose, the parents are living in, the coppers believes to what they see first without asking questions and shoots next. And they kills the boyfriend in the scene. So all her members of what the people she cares about is been shot, killed, murdered right in front of her. And that split moment would basically change the whole life or perspective of what she is. And don't forget, she's only in her 20s, which in that time, when I was like thinking 20s, everything can crash and boom bang for you quite quickly, because you still hasn't yet understood what's there for you or what you want to do, because there's so much more to explore. So since that, and then that situation happens, she basically ends up being in asylum kind of thing, type of place where basically she was incoherent and she wasn't making sense, and from there her trouble starts. And before, like, you would think that would be quite a lot to digest, she goes into a place or where the guy who murdered her parents, she goes because he's going to be executed. And then we jump into his mindset. The guy who is, what is his name now? Oh my god, he's everywhere on the storylines, plastered everywhere, and now I can't see the name of the guy. But anyway, he is a mass murderer. He's enjoying it. He doesn't, the only satisfaction he has, pleasure and satisfaction he has, is by doing whatever he feels like doing, like murdering people right, left, and center. And his execution is the electrocution chair, and she's the one who's going into that prison to basically witness the mass murderer to be killed. But to our surprise, while this execution happens, I really like this panel, by the way. I think one of the most intriguing panels for me, how they plaster his eyes, put that helmet on, and then puts the bag on top of it. So it's really cool. And then things happens where like almost unimaginable situation what prison has ever experienced happened. And apparently this is transition for our changing man to take over the body of the mass murderer she's basically hates. And then the story ends up being in where she's basically helping him to escape. And imagine you have like at the you see the person, the serial killer, and he's basically you've driven the car, and how insane that feel has to be, where you have a mass murderer in your seat, but he's telling you it's not me, it's just me, Shade. And some person's trying to basically convince her that this is not the guy who actually killed. And she has this knife with her when they stopped in this motel, and she's basically about to commit the murder, and he keeps on trying. She stabs the pillow with a knife, and he's like, I'm gonna kill you, because this is what the only way of me kind of moving forward will happen. And then she sees her parents, so she starts to think that she's hallucinating. Honestly, throughout this, I read so the story goes into 4 issues. So first 4 issues you get a bit more understanding what's happening here. And this Who Shot JFK story is probably one of the best I've read. Terrence, I don't know if you agree, but honestly, the way the plot line goes, the more crazy it becomes, but it also explains quite a lot. So not only Peter Milligan goes into this explanation how this creature comes in American Horror, as I think is, or something's called. So this bad guy, American Horror, comes into fruition, and that's why Shade the Changing Man in the first place took over the body of the man who's about to die. That's the conditions to be, but also it shows you the workings of this villain who basically Shade Changing Man is gonna be in pursuit of, because he's changing reality, and then he basically explains to you what it is and how everything works, and then he's actually in further issues down the line explains all the surroundings of existence of Shade and Changing Man, and which is really, not only is quite a lot of complicated stories going on and lots of wacky situations happening, because there's body out of body comes into fruition, like the reality doesn't exist, how he the person who, or the journalist who's basically doing the investigation, kind of gets surrounded by this American horror, and he's basically, whatever his inner thoughts comes into fruition, he's basically starts talking to JFK poster, kind of figure out that he's thinking he's talking to the JFK, and it's just kind of mad bombs crazy, but and also it's just fascinating further down the line you're going with it. So I absolutely loved it, and of course this is American Scream, that's what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
So this, it tells you on the issue number 4. So yeah, I honestly, I don't know if I've had that much attention given to the first time I attempted reading this, but now I was just like taking my sweet ass time. This is the actual issue, explains to where Changing Man is coming from, and there's into more dimensions when it's just only Earth and all that stuff. How he had his basically why was chosen to do that stuff. There's this guy who is basically his mentor, who basically explains the job title, and also does he actually explain the job title? Does he actually makes it worse for Changing Man in the future because of the promises he has made, and it didn't really have the promises done properly? So it's very intriguing, and it's as trippy as it can be, all this covers.
It's Brendan
Yeah.
McCarthy on the front covers there.
Is it? I don't even know.
Yeah.
I don't think it's even just. Oh, maybe I don't know if it's there. Oh wait. No, it doesn't say. It doesn't say who's the cover artist. But anyway, and this is.
Yeah, I think it says on the front. It's Brendan McCarthy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I believe. Oh yes, probably it is. Anyway, so this is the issue 5, which I've read it as well, but it's a Nick story now, and it's based in Hollywood. And whereas a lot more craziest stuff happens, and she's Kathy, she's still continuously being next to him, and they kind of have this weird relationship blooming between two of them, which kind of really odd and bizarre. If like the face is kept, because he can't change the face, even because his abilities aren't still what you're supposed to have. You know what I mean? So he can't use them properly yet, because the situation where he's placed at didn't happen the way they intended to do it. So is losing memory of the first 4 issues now, and this one is kind of gaining them back and stuff. Oh, look, Forgerelli saying.
Oh, Forgerelli.
Yeah, Mr. Forgerelli, thank you for confirming that as well. But yeah, honestly, so I'm now, in order to me to concentrate on this, what the attention is supposed to have is I have them next to my bed now, so I always want to see them. So this is how I'm not going to get distracted by what I'm reading. So I basically want to do it throughout. I don't know. I hope I have a whole run. I am in my brain thinking I do have a whole run.
There's 70 issues of that run. It went 70.
Yeah. So I don't know if I have now. Wait.
Yeah.
Let me see if those CLZ apps. It's supposed to tell you. Apparently, I recorded it all. But you know what I mean? I think yours, like all of us, whoever is using those kind of app, I don't know if
sometimes stuff disappears. It's weird.
Yes.
So Shade the Changing Man is one of my absolute favorite comics of all time. I was reading it when I was getting it off the shelf. I was reading that, and I was reading that volume of Spectre that was coming out at that same time. And those 2 comics were such game changers for me when it came to just comic book reading. Like Shade the Changing Man kind of knocked my socks off. So it started off as DC, like you said, and then it transitioned to Vertigo for the majority of the run. But that book, it just, and honestly, like looking back on it, I would say those first couple of arcs, as interesting as they are, it just I feel like personally those are maybe like the weaker arcs of the whole
Oh
series
wow.
because it just escalates and gets better and changes, and it's such a good run. Like you have me wanting to read it again because it's been a long time since I've read it. I am so like that. Like I said, that one is like really core for me as like a comic reader. It meant
Mm.
so much as I was reading that shit. It's so amazing that you're digging it.
So I, according to my Seals app, I don't have all of them, but I
Okay.
have like quite a bit. So I'll see, but I don't know. Do you know that how many? So you're saying the 70 issues?
Yeah, 70 issues total. Yeah.
So I'm definitely missing the last
Because I got
20.
the whole damn run again. It's something that lives in one of these drawers.
Oh
And the other thing
shit!
I do have is I have the Steve Ditko because I'm such a fan of it. I
Yeah,
eventually hunted down the Steve Ditko, and you would love it's 7 issues. I've got all 7. You
yeah,
would
it's
love
supposed to
it
be.
because
Yeah.
it's Steve Ditko that
Mm.
he's sort of doing Doctor Strange-ish type of visuals
Yeah.
as well.
Mm.
The
Mm.
story itself, I remember being okay. I haven't read this forever, but it's so great. I mean, tell me that's not something right out of Doctor Strange.
Oh
Even
yeah,
that
of
window
course.
in the
Yeah,
background with
yeah,
like a
exactly.
pentagram,
It says like exact
So
window.
it's so visually so much fun.
Mm.
But yeah, you get a much different version of Shade the Changing Man in here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just show you the covers quickly because they're pretty sweet as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's such a fun character. Peter Milligan, that was like obviously the first time I'd read Peter Milligan, and it
Mm.
was one of those artists that I just continued to follow. First time I saw Brendan McCarthy, and then he was on my radar. So I have such fond memories of even going on trips down through the States and picking up an issue on our stop,
Mm.
and just kind of sitting in the back of the car listening to my Walkman and reading comic books. But that volume, whatever volume was coming out that time of Spectre and Shade the Changing Man were really, really important books for me growing up. So yeah, there you go. That's that as well. That's amazing that you've got a bunch of them and you're enjoying it. That's so great.
The I because since I knew that it was Ditko, I knew about that run particularly. I was looking for, but then I saw this one, so I got distracted and I started looking because it's Vertigo. See, because I knew there's part, the it's not. I wasn't aware that it wasn't fully Vertigo from the get go, but because
Mhm.
it's Vertigo, that's why I was always looking. And I now probably because we are talking and now I'm recollecting things and I'm looking in my CLZ. I remember how even like Forgerelli saying pre-Vertigo, those Vertigo rounds were impossible to fill out. I don't think it's also impossible to fill out even maybe now. Maybe it is, but I don't know. But
Mhm.
for when if you use it, let's say if you go to comic book shops, probably it is easy because that's main chunk of it. I got it from going to comic marts and clearly remember
Mhm.
picking them out. But now because I'm not going it and I have like a huge chunk of it, so I thought like, okay, cool, I'm gonna be able to read some of it. But if you say there's like I know I have like at least 45 issues out of 70,
Oh,
so it's not so
perfect. Well,
bad.
that's good. Yeah.
So I'm gonna continuously going whatever probably I have and maybe fill it up in maybe digital, or I'm gonna look for if I can see any cheaper versions of it because
Mhm.
I honestly, this is really cool. And as I say, what I'm
I
talking
don't
about
know if
the
it's one of the books that they collected at any time. I'm not really sure. Maybe I don't know if Forgerelli knows, but I
yeah,
don't think it's ever been in a collected edition, which
I
is
don't know
weird.
if they had to be honest.
Hmm.
Maybe it definitely had the trade paperbacks because I think I can
Mm,
recall seeing trade
okay.
paperbacks
Yeah.
of these, but I'm not sure if they've been doing anything more than that. But because
Hmm.
like this is the good way to get into, and then how much they're praising the Peter Milligan. So there's this letters pages at the back, and the more you read of them, the more that people gets excited about mentioning how good it is. And then because of this popularity of this book, Peter Milligan even got to write Batman books. Then he got to write some other stuff because he was gaining the talk of the town kind of thing writer, where he's basically had more things happening for him because of that. So anyway, and they're also mentioning about Stranger Adventure 205 and Deadman
Mm,
story. It's kind
hmm.
of intriguing to go because the minute, as I say, you go into one world, other worlds kind of opens up because, like, I've never heard of this, but this is painted, and it's by tell you what, Jamie Delano and John Higgins.
Okay.
And this is miniseries,
World
three-sheet
Without End.
format.
Yeah, it doesn't ring a bell to me
And
either.
I looked at the covers, and they are stunning. And there's like wait, did I look in search history? Give me a second if I'm not really prepared about it, but yeah, it's 6 issues, and all of them are beautiful too. I'll show you.
Cool.
My phone and pictures. So that's those 6 issues, all of them painted apparently. So it's painted
Sweet.
inside. So 6 issues of that. So it's already another thing I want to basically get attention on. You can't see it; it's too small of a page for you to show. But yeah, so anyway, I always wanted to, because I started to even thinking about it when Shane the Changing Girl came out, and do you remember those times when they were releasing?
Yep.
And then you mentioned about Shane the Changing Girl, and we were talking about
Young
Shane the
Animal or
Changing Man,
whatever
how
that's
this is 100 times better because blah 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 blah. So I think I started
the
collecting
Shade the
those.
Changing Girl and Shade the Changing Woman stuff I read was actually really good as well.
No,
like
I'm
nothing.
saying I'm not saying that they're bad, but I'm saying that's how the conversation started about in generally about all this stuff. So and because, as I say, DC mentioned Vertigo again, I was like, what do I have? What I have not seen? And he's like, oh,
yeah.
I haven't finished or even kind of give full attention to this series. So, they only did few trades, never finished it as far as I know.
Okay, well there you go. Yeah.
Maybe they will do it now.
I mean, we'll see. Like it feels like if they're gonna relaunch Vertigo, it would seem like the time to maybe do some new additions. But I don't know the full story of, because it wasn't totally creator owned stuff. There was still some sort of negotiation between them and DC. So I don't know how all of that works as far as the rights to reprint some of that stuff. So but it would be a good thing to see reprinted.
So this line of DC's now, DC's
the smaller ones,
compact comics. So apparently it's so popular now that they're coming out with all the stuff. So I wonder, because of this kind of like format, because this format is tiny in comparison to a comic.
Did you see what Forgerelli's saying there?
Yeah.
There's an omnibus coming out next summer. Well, there you go.
Oh boy. Oh, cool.
Good work, Forgerelli.
Thank you. Well then, let's start saving pennies, I guess.
Oh, Solicit says it's number 1 to 50. Okay.
So then it's.
So then another book with the last 20 in it. That seems odd to split it up that way.
Yeah.
Unless they fill it up with this as well too, that would be pretty cool to do the 7 issues of the Ditko stuff as well.
But then I didn't realize that they were saying that Ditko run is actually even didn't have the last 1 issue left, and they didn't print it. And then one that
I don't think it was popular. I think maybe Ditko didn't kind of knock it out of the park, because I mean it is a weird book. It's a weird premise, but I don't know. It reads as good Ditko to me, man. Do a second volume with the Changing Girl stuff. Yeah, that would make more sense actually. That would make way more sense than doing the Ditko stuff.
Yeah. Okay. I guess then I'm gonna have to, if I'm ever debating whether I'm gonna finish the run, I'll go. I don't know. I'm not sure about DC's omnibus in general.
I mean, that might very well be one where I would double dip, because of how much I love it.
Extra material, maybe.
And maybe extras, but even if there's no extras, I don't know. I feel like that's a book that I may double dip on, because it really, like, when I say it means a lot to me, that book means a hell of a lot to me. It's just really.
It's very.
It's funny how some of that stuff can really be. Like, my memory is that it was really world changing, because again, like even in that first story arc, they're talking about a lot of things. Like there's this whole the madness of America, this trip across America, and kind of showing the warts of the United States and the rise of serial killers at that time, like they were almost more famous than celebrities, and all of these kind of things, like the American dream, about how that's not accessible to everybody. So a lot of the ways I think now they were talking about in a comic. And I'm sure I was thinking of at the time too, to sort of see it in like a comic book, I think was also a little like, holy shit, what am I reading here? This, this idea of like comics not being for kids or whatever, or what, like the mature comic, I guess it's one of those things where it was talking about ideas in a DC book that
Yeah.
were kind of surprising to me, So, but again,
Oh,
that's also Vertigo in general.
oh, there you go. And the story
1 to
Vertigo
50,
Jam.
Who's Who number
Oh,
7 and 15, and a story from Vertigo Jam,
yes.
Vertigo Gallery. Holy smokes. Wow.
Uh,
Wow.
that's quite a lot.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be something that I would get then. I have a feeling that's going to be in this house.
So you say next year then for Jerry? So, okay, that makes
Yeah,
have
he
some
was saying
time.
next year. Yeah, next summer.
Yeah, so no wonder I'm somebody. But anyway, this story, second story about the Hollywood, it kicks off, and no pulling punches because they were talking about pedophilia first. Then they were talking about doing favors to because in order to be a female actress, and if you wanted to go through, and what you needed to do, like having an extra like job done because
A
you
casting
have to,
couch. Yeah.
yeah, and you have to make sure that you look the right part, and then it's about another girl, a woman who is basically in the eyes of beholders doesn't really like do the justice, and then afterwards, because all about that American Scream taking over and dipping the reality of what it is because whatever is in your head, it becomes right in your face. It opens up. Basically, they show this Hollywood because Hollywood, generally how it's been used to manipulate the storylines and the people who's getting taken apart, and then you're showing like a plaques of the actresses right in front of like those posters in the streets where basically open up all the bad thoughts she had about herself and how she basically became to be, and how this overly confident actor who's basically by one conversation with a child end up striking her or doing something else because they don't yet disclosing the full information what's happened to it because it was his secret. So it's really cool storylines going on.
Yeah, no, for sure, Forgerelli. There's no guarantee of anything for sure, especially that far out. Who knows what'll happen? And it'll depend on how that first one sells, right? Whether they do a second one or not, or whether they abandon it. But I think if it does come out, I'm still gonna, even if there's no promise of a second one,
No,
I'm
just
pretty sure I'm gonna
having
be getting that.
honestly, just having all those first 50 on a go, and then the who's who. I mean, I think I've seen a couple of them. I think I have a couple of them, but not all of them. I never collected the who's who. And but the Vertigo Jam, I think we both even talked about it because we were reading. We went on this like lots of Vertigo reading moments where we were talking quite a
Yeah,
lot
because
about
I
it.
know I've got it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have that Vertigo Jam, but then Vertigo Gallery Dreams and Nightmares #1. I don't think I've.
Yeah, it doesn't sound that title doesn't sound familiar to me at all.
Yeah, for
So yeah.
me, yeah. So, yeah. So anyway,
That's
it's like
awesome.
a
That's so
sign.
awesome. I love
Like
that you're reading it. That's so great.
yeah, it's a sign I had to start going reading this because
Yeah.
because I like yourself. I have the whole shelf ticket just for Vertigo because that's how I can't really like put it in different like with by the author because the Vertigo by itself is another beast, which I found it deserves to have its own shelf because there's so many
Yeah,
things
absolutely.
happening in that time. So, and of course,
And there's
like
so many, like, and when you look back, there's so many crazy mini series. Oh, Vertigo Gallery was a pinup book. That makes sense. Vertigo Gallery. Yeah, there's so many like little mini series that popped up all through their time. Like there was just so much of it. And yeah, Vertigo, like we were talking about at the beginning with Tim, I'm sure it was the same. Well, I'm not sure of anything. I'm assuming it's the same for Tim. Like Vertigo meant a hell of a lot to a lot of us reading comics because it was this alternative to the superhero books, and it was these alternative comics. They just happen to have some superhero type characters or just stories, yeah, so good. Cool, man.
Cool.
I found at the convention, I found the last Sergio Aragone's Louder Than Words that I needed. This is issue 2 of a 6-issue miniseries. Again, like a $2 bin. This was the only issue that they had, and it just so happened it was the one that I needed, which was great. It's always that pleasure of closure when you get that when you get that final issue, and it's all as it says on the front. It's Louder Than Words. It's all silent comic strips from Aragone's, and of course they're brilliant, and of course they're funny, and of course they're ridiculous. And it's even like if you want to look at a design and layout, you get beautiful strips like this which is also a pretty funny little story. Seeing a stomach, there's a baby in there. Seeing a big woman, there must be multiple babies in there. Just really, it's so good. Easy to kind of sit down and just flip through and just purely enjoy kind of the denseness of his pages sometimes. Again, like we were talking about with that guy Caldwell, it's this mix of styles, or the mix of, sorry, not styles, the mix of like line work and busyness, and using that negative space so well. Like it's a standout panel. You know, that guy is clearly running. It's great. Really, really great. So not much more to say about that, but this is, what year is this one? 1997 is when these were coming out. So yeah, 6-issue miniseries from Dark Horse that is definitely worth keeping your eyes out for, because it's Sergio. I didn't read it yet, but I also picked up one other issue I was missing from the Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think I'm only missing one more issue from this run. I haven't read it yet though, but
how big is the run?
It was a good one. Sorry?
How big is the run? How many issues?
I think it's 7 issues, so something like that. So it's not huge.
Yeah.
This one looks okay. It's the classic black and white turtle stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if this was I
Who's
don't think it was a minor key, since it was like $8. But this guy at this booth, actually, he had the 4th appearance of Usagi Yojimbo in that Albedo comic that I had my hands on. And I was really contemplating buying. I don't remember what the price was off the top of my head, but then I saw those Akira books and everything went out the window, because he also had an Eclipse collected of Miracle Man stuff. I think it was volume 2. And I have never, ever seen the Eclipse trade paperbacks of Miracle Man. I've never seen them out in the wild once. And that one, I do know the price. He had $90 on that one. And I was saying to him, he's like, yeah, I mean, you never see it. I'm like, yeah, I've never seen this in person ever. It's something that you just have to find online. So I don't know how many they printed, but that was pretty tempting. He also had a couple of issues of the Neil Gaiman Miracle Man, 2 issues that I didn't have. But again, the Miracle Man Neil Gaiman stuff from Eclipse is pretty expensive to get your hands on, like $20 an issue kind of thing, you know, so. But I do know the guy that has the stuff. So maybe if he has them in 6 months when I see him again, maybe I'll pick something up there, because it would be kind of cool to have an early Usagi appearance.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be lovely. But then, yeah, very pricey. I mean, I'm not even talking about eBay prices. That's just like through the roof. Those ones.
I also speaking of turtles, I also saw a 9.0 graded Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles issue 1. I don't think it was first printing, but it was an early printing, but it was like the second printing or something. It didn't have a price on it. It was in one of the boxes, because a lot of these comic guys had a ton of boxes all over the place and only some slabs up on the wall. But this guy also had boxes of slabs as well too, as ones on the wall. So one of them that was kind of in a corner box, I don't know if it was being held for somebody or what the deal was, but it was cool to kind of hold it in your hands, though. It was pretty amazing.
Well, too expensive to show the price.
Well, and that was also the thing. It's like, I'm not even asking how much this is, because I know that I can't afford it. So it's no point in even wasting his time. It was just cool to see.
Oh, that's nice. So that's it. Do you have anything else to talk about?
No, the last one was just this Orochi, but honestly, I don't have a ton to say about it. Yeah. It's 4 volumes from this guy, Kazuo Umez. I really like this Orochi series. I know that there's some guys on YouTube. I think Earl Grey isn't as big of a fan of this series. I can totally see why. With a volume like this, because this first story in it, there's 2 stories in this one, and the first story really didn't work for me. The way it was written, it felt like it was someone telling you a story of something that they heard from somebody else. And they were just telling you like very basics and moving along quickly. So it just moved along at this weird pace. And it was just a strange way of telling a story. The second story was much more interesting. And it's called, was it called The Soldier, I think? And it's a boy's relationship with his father. Yeah, it's called Combat. Sorry, a boy's relationship with his father, and we find out his father was at Guadalcanal, and he stuff happened to him there, and he experienced things that he's still kind of haunted by. But he's at this point, he's like the nicest guy in their town, helping people with their groceries, just pleasant to everybody he meets. He knows everybody's name. I think he's a school teacher as well. And then the son starts finding out some stuff about his father through this guy that has a missing arm and a missing leg, who we find out eventually was a war buddy. And then it kind of goes from there. A pretty amazing little story. But again, it's another one of those books that it feels like it's written for a younger, even though it's darker and heavy subjects, that it's written for a bit of a younger audience. So it kind of reads like that. But I just love these hardcovers, and I've got all 4 because this was one I missed somehow. Again, completed the 4 issues, the 4 books. Completionist in me, the completionist.
Oh, I've never seen the cover probably of the Miracle hardcover, to be honest.
Yeah, all that stuff is worth a bundle, man, because, yeah, that Eclipse stuff is worth money. It's crazy.
Because I was like, it goes like with popularity. Is it going to drop in popularity because of what we know about, the rumors? But I'm wondering. Because I don't know if they're going to even do any... because I've never seen anything new, because I think he was saying that he's producing something new work. I mean, talking about Neil Gaiman generally. But I don't know if I have not heard anything since, but I wasn't even looking for it. So I don't know if it's came out. But with the Miracle Man, I had reprints. The Marvel was reprinting it, and I bought it for cheap. Somebody sold it for me. Reprint, because reedition or whatever, whatever they call it, Marvel that time. So, but I've never seen even.
Yeah, and I've only read a couple of the Neil Gaiman Miracle Mans. I've never read the whole thing, like his run on it. I've never completed it. I'm super curious about it because the previous stuff was great. I've eventually found all the single issues, or I think most of the single issues. I think I'm missing one from like the Alan Moore run, but I've managed to find most of them.
Isn't it the death of a child wasn't one of them? It is because that's why.
There was like a birth in there that was pretty graphic, that really got people's knickers in a knot. You know what I mean? So
I think issue 15 or something. I remember there.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. One of some issue,
Yeah.
I just know that there's a couple that are just really hard to find, and they're pretty damn pricey, as it goes with silly comic books that we just love to pieces, unfortunately.
I'm still wondering, when is the last issue of Tom King's Helen of Windhorn gonna come out? Because
it's almost the end of October, so maybe it's November that the next one comes out, because the last one early October?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know the release time. When I received the thingy, I always just get the things. Oh, so the new Rick Remender. Yeah, 15 was a big. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
I told you there was some 15-ish. Was a big issue. So Rick Remender's new book, which is gonna come in January, is called The Seasons. And he's gonna Paul Azateca is the artist. Who is gonna be? I mean, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Cool.
But this is one of the. Oh, that's the Wes Craig's cover. I'm gonna show you on my phone. There you go.
Oh yeah, nice.
So he's already kind of like proper advertising it before it comes out. I'm talking about Rick Remender in general.
Yeah, sweet. Well, that's good. Another one from him. We'll see what that's like. Yeah. He's on a roll.
Oh yeah, he's been on a roll for like he has like what 4 books out? No, 3, no 5. Not talking about just his written books is 4 of them, but then he's written, like you say, Grommets.
Grommets. And that's got issue 5 of. No, I haven't read it yet. Yeah. This is issue 5 of 7, so it's almost done. But I'm sure it's going to be great. I don't doubt that this is going to be awesome, especially with that cover and where we left the issue last time, where we now have a better idea of this guy's home life and they've gone to this party and there's going to be a fight, I'm sure. And
Okay,
so
because
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Such a good book, man.
His dad quite violent, isn't it? What you were mentioning?
His dad, yeah, one of the characters' dads is ex-alcoholic and a recovering alcoholic, and he's still struggling with stuff, and so yeah, some anger stuff. But this is the party that they're at, where it's one of his buddies throwing a party, and someone who was coming told a bunch of the jocks, so now it's the jocks coming to the skaters' party, and all hell is gonna break loose, I'm sure.
Anything you're looking forward to read next week? I don't even, as I say, I don't even know what's coming out, to be honest.
I'm looking forward to digging into some of the stuff that I got. One of the other things that I picked up at this show, this is the Saskatchewan artist. And she did this. She has 4 books called Lemons from her Cursed Rabbit comics. I read the first 2. I'm hoping to read the last 2 this evening so I can get a full story. It's super cool because it really has this 80s style that I love. So this is the first comic that she's done. She did it all herself. She's dealt with the printing all herself. She's currently working on issue 5, and once issue 5 is done, she's gonna look to collect everything in like a graphic novel. So she had a deal: if you buy all 4 issues, you get a couple of you get a free print. So I chose a smaller print, so she gave me 2 free prints, and she signed each of them and personalized the first issue for me. But this really reminds me of like this independent comic I was reading called Professor Dark. It has that kind of vibe to it, but it also has that kind of classic 80s black and white vibe to it as well. But for a first comic, it's super, like, the quality is high level quality, man. And it's pretty damn entertaining. I feel like if she wrote some short stories, she would probably fit into like almost the Vacuum Decay kind of world, because it's that kind of darkness. So I was talking to her about, so are you looking for a publisher? She's like, yeah, I was thinking of it for the collected. And I said, well, I mean, it seems to me like looking at these that you might not need it. Like, you seem to be doing pretty good on your own without working with somebody. So, and then I was telling her about one of these local comic shops, 204 Comics, who has a section for local, because at first I thought she was from Winnipeg, that she was local to here. But I was telling her about the shop, that once she gets something, she should approach it, because I'm sure he would carry it. So super cool. She was a super nice lady. Amazing art. Like, her setup even looked pretty cool. And for a first time cartoonist, so freaking awesome.
That's cool.
I'm sure she's done illustration and stuff in the background, in the back, but for a first comic, it's a damn good read so far. 2 issues in.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then. I think we're done. We covered all of our readings. Quite early for me, which is kind of weird, but I know it's not going to be like that all the time. Change of time. It's such a surreal feeling when you change time that this day, because it's just like, it feels long, like really long, because you go 1 hour backwards.
Because it's only like 10 after 10 there for you now, isn't it?
Yeah. Which is usually, that's way too early.
Yeah, right. I mean, because usually we're around till like 11. Probably, right?
Well, we were around like, but by the time I get into the bed, it's like almost midnight, and you're like,
right.
Switch off that brain of mine is quite a difficult part. Anyway, so
our time changes not this weekend, but the weekend afterwards. Or maybe it is this coming weekend. I don't remember, but it's coming up right away.
Oh, it's interesting because
the 3rd, I think, maybe.
Yeah. Well then.
Yeah. So that would be this coming weekend, a week today.
Oh yes. So you'll have a pleasure of, I know you, but it's fine. Then we come back into the same time frame, like the difference between 2 ponds.
Yeah, it'll be So this is, I mean, it was the same time for me today, so it's just nice.
Well, because I did that on purposely, because I was like, should I, because I could have just done it the way it would be much later for you, and then I was like, I should actually keep in mind on that one. So anyway.
Yeah. So I'm teaching next weekend, so I won't be around for the Sunday chat.
Sorry. I'm already. I was like already telling you, see you next weekend. And now you just like slap on the face. Okay, cool.
Yeah, see you later.
See you later. So week after that, then.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. So thank you guys. Thank you for joining.
Later.
And Howler Mouse for giving us a couple of scrolls of the paper. And then we'll see you hopefully soon.
For sure.
Bye. End of the stream.